Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, April 6, 2021 regular meeting of the Windham Southeast School District Board. The meeting has been properly warned, and I have one announcement and then a couple of changes to the agenda, not actual changes, just shifting things around. The first is that we have had a direct link, a one-click link created to the commitment to social justice and anti-racism that the board adopted in July. And so you can now get there with one click, and the address is really simple. It's the acronym for the supervisory union, which is WSESU.org, and then /SOCJUS, which obviously is for social justice. So that's WSESU.org/SOCJUS. So that will be much easier to find. We refer to it a lot, and we are going to start including that link on most of our documents as well. So a couple changes in the order of the agenda. I forgot to notify Barb Nowakowski that we had scheduled some of the teacher leaders to come and talk about the commitment, the commitment I just mentioned. We also, so they're going to be right after the BUHS presentation. The public comment, as we discussed in our last meeting, is moved up now after we do the consent agenda, the minutes and the warrants. We will have a 10-minute session for people that have questions, public comment on non-agenda items. And it'll be 10 minutes. If there are more people, we will resume at the end of the meeting, but we wanted to give, if people just had a brief thing they wanted to mention, to not have people wait a long time. We also agreed that since these are things that are not on the agenda and we haven't prepared answers for, people should not expect a response unless it's a really simple thing. So that's what we'll be doing right after the consent agenda. And then what's the other thing? I think, oh no, we have moved the academy presentation to also come after the teacher leaders, after the administrative report, when we hear from BUHS, and then from the teacher leaders, we'll do the academy motions and get that out of the way. And then we'll spend most of the rest of the meeting talking about the leadership councils and the committees, which we haven't done for a month or more, and sort of getting up to date and preparing for the rest of this year, and then moving into the summer next year. So without further ado, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of March 16th, 2021, the warrants of March 3rd, the warrants of March 8th, warrants of March 15th, warrants of March 22nd, and the warrants of March 29th, 2021, as well as the payrolls from February 26th, March 12th, and March 26th, 2021. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Thomas. And second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. Oh, it looks nice at your house. Moved and seconded to accept to approve the consent agenda, the minutes, warrants, and payrolls. Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, board members, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. So next item is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anyone who has a comment they would like to offer to the school district community before we begin our regular business? Yes, John.
Hi, it's me, Robin.
Oh, hi, Robin.
Hi. I just wanted to ask about the position in the Diversity, Equity, and Social Justice Office, the half-time teaching role. I had heard that there was a move to change that to a recruiting role, and I just wanted to ask What was the status of that position?
Andy or Steve, would you like, can you, or no, Andy or Carrie, our supervisory union chair, would either of you have a brief response for Robin or clarification?
Yeah. Robin, I believe I clarified in an email that we're looking at what our funding sources are. That's the email I replied back to you on that. This is a non-certified position. It's under an SU. It's under the SU. We hope to have more information on that shortly.
Okay, I just wasn't clear on your response that it's not, the recruiting role is not necessarily being drawn from that position. Is that what you're saying?
We're looking at what funding sources we have available for that. But again, that's an SU. It's an SU funded position. So we just want to make sure we're making that distinction.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to the high point of the day or the evening, presentation from the BUHS school programs.
Hey, Mr. Chair, can I just do I have a couple hires.
I'm sorry, Andy. Yes,
Push
I
forward.
forgot about that. Sorry, Steve. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Steve, we yanked it away from you. Sorry. So we have 2 hires from Oak Grove, a hire from Guilford, and a hire for the BUHS. So we'd like to put forward Allison Paquette at Oak Grove for 1st grade, Kelsey Rabideau at Oak Grove in 5th grade, Myra Ortega at Guilford in kindergarten, and Cynthia Nordmeyer at BUHS as a counselor. So I would submit those names to the school board for approval of those hiring of those positions.
Thank you, Andy. And Wendy, I believe you have those. If you don't, please let me know.
Yes, I did get the names and the schools. Thanks, Dave.
Great. So may I have a motion, please, to approve the hiring of Allison Paquette for a grade 1 position at Oak Grove, Kelsey Rabideau for a grade 5 position at Oak Grove, Myra Ortega for a kindergarten position at Guilford Central, and Christina Nordmeyer for a school counselor at BUHS.
So moved.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
Second,
Uh,
it was
any-
Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, please unmute and indicate your approval of these appointments by saying aye.
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 And David, we have
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Andy. And now resignations.
Corey Sorensen from Guilford, Dalen Burse from Academy, Darylyn, I'm sorry, and Kevin L. from Guilford as well.
Thank you. So we have, may I have a motion, please, to accept with regret the resignation of Corey Sorensen, grade 4 teacher at Guilford, Darylyn Bierce, grade 2 teacher at Academy, and Kevin L., PE teacher at Guilford. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is that Thomas? Yeah, thank you. And a second?
Second, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. Moved and seconded to accept the resignations as presented. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. Okay, thank you, Andy. Now we can go on to the high school presentation.
Andy, are you sure? Okay. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here. And I want a quick reminder that one of our presentations isn't going to happen until 7:30 because they are getting ready. And you'll learn more about that as that unfolds. But while we're waiting for them, thank you for the chance to present about the high school. We know that we've dominated a lot of things due to COVID and other issues. And so it's really great for us to take a second and stand back and let you kind of hear from our staff and from our students about some of the great stuff that we do every day. So we're really grateful for the board for inviting us here and for letting us do this first of what we hope are several presentations about the high school. As we were planning this, we were really thinking that we wanted to provide some different glimpses into different aspects of our large school and various things that we do. So we really chose that for tonight, we're going to hear from a couple of science teachers, Michelle Hood and Mike Auerbach, and they're going to talk a little bit about how they've adapted science and biology to a remote setting and the benefits that they've seen of that. We'll hear from one of our extracurricular activities, our mock trial team, which just completed a competition this weekend, and that will be led by Tessa Anders and Ashley Netto and students as well. And finally, we're going to hear from the band. We're going to hear from Steve Rice and the jazz band. I do have to say, he's not here, but I'll say when he gets here as well. Out of all of our programs and activities that were most impacted by COVID, I think music ranks up there with one of the most impacted. They sat on the sidelines literally and watched while we allowed sports teams to play, and while we opened up other various aspects, because people were very worried about singing. They were very worried about instruments playing. And Steve Rice, Elise, and Tom Nashaka have all done a phenomenal job of staying positive in music. They've done a great job of continuing to grow music at BUHS and BAMS. And we're really looking forward to seeing a huge rebirth of music next year. So I can't say enough about their patience, their tenacity. They've met with people across the state to kind of make the case for returning music as quickly as possible. And I'm proud that their labors have borne fruit and we're back playing music again, and we're thrilled to do that. Before I turn it over to Mike and Michelle, I do also want to highlight another program that just started on Friday. About 18 months ago, Nurse Rinder came to me with this great idea that we would find a way to get students who needed dental care but didn't have access a trip to the dentist. And Linda, working with Windham Dental Center and BMH and the United Way, worked long and hard to set up our very first visits that were scheduled for last April. COVID hit and it all went on hold, but I'm really proud to report that we had our first Windham Dental visit. We brought 5 students to the dentist last Friday. All of those students received x-rays and exam, cleaning and fluoride treatments. Those students, some of them also needed additional care. We contacted the parents, let them know about the additional care. Appointments have been made for those students as well. It'll go on again in May, and we're hoping to grow that program. We're hoping that we continue to get dental care for our students. The cost to us is that we do pay to have somebody transport the students back and forth to the appointment. Other than that, our partners are very generous and they are covering the cost of that. And the dream down the road is to actually have well doctor visits here on site and to expand that dental access for our kids. So Linda Rinder has done a phenomenal job with everything she does, but she has done a great job of recognizing this need, coming up with a plan, coming up with a program. And we are thrilled that we actually have a dental program here at the high school now. So if you see Linda, give her kudos. We're very grateful to her work. With that said, I would like to stop talking because you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from our great staff and students. So let's turn it over to Mike and Michelle. I think Mike needs to screen share. If we could arrange that. I introduced Department Chair Michelle Hood. Go ahead, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Be available.
So good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to share our work in the science department with you. As we've all noted, teaching in the time of the pandemic has been particularly challenging and complex in varied ways. We're really excited to have Mike Auerbach share some of his creative strategies that he has developed alone and collaboratively, and I've had the benefit of implementing in my own classrooms. Look forward to implementing and participating in that again this semester. In addition to his impressive understanding of the sciences, Mike brings boundless energy to crafting lessons for both in-person and remote learning that bring in all sorts of technology twists and turns that are really engaging and invite students to remain learners in the sciences. So with great respect, I turn the presentation over to my colleague, Mike.
Hi, everybody. I unmuted and everything. Thanks a lot, Michelle, for that great introduction. Michelle is the greatest department chair anybody's ever worked under, and she does so much great work for this school. And I thank you, members of the board, Superintendent Starzinski. Thank you for the time for letting us come and talk about what's basically been we've been on fire with for, I don't know. I don't think I've stopped working since March of 2020. In fact, I know I haven't. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but we are just on fire with what we're trying to do for our students. And I'm going to tell you some of the general things about pandemic learning problems, some of the overall solutions that I've implemented across all of my classes and that we have implemented in many cases. And then I want to talk about a really special case, which I'll tell you right now was a fantastic collaboration with Bonnievale Environmental Education Center to get our kids outside as a regular part of our biology classes. So I am going to share screen and bring up a presentation for you. And let's just give it a minute to load. I never know how the Wi-Fi is going to be here. Oh, that's the end. Hold on a moment. That's the wrong one. This is the one I meant to start. So these are the educational strategies we use because from the start, our directive was it's not going to be like last year. And let me start with just a little bit of why I may be the first to tell you this. Remote learning has been kind of difficult for our students and for our teachers. I've been a classroom teacher since 2001, and for me, it's been a thing where all of a sudden I'm reaching for levers that I don't have anymore to teach my kids, and I didn't even realize it until they were gone. And so it's just been a very kind of difficult, lonely time as a teacher, especially through the last spring and just sitting here in our houses and trying to make connection with students on Google Classroom who, you know, they may be engaged, they may not be engaged, and it is not the easiest system to keep track of everything with once it gets away from you. So it makes it a special task to try to present science education and all kinds of education through this modality. So this was where we were at, and I just want to show you some of the things that I came up with. And the real thing that occurred to me is that teaching isn't just like your waiter isn't just standing there writing things down, your teacher isn't just standing there saying things, right? And there's so many different things that teachers are facilitating in a classroom that are intangible and impossible to put online. And so it's not so easy to do that when you're, well, the thing that really was missing was me, right? Those asynchronous kids, whether they're coming on at 2 in the morning or 10 in the morning. Luckily now we at least have classes that happen at certain times, but I wasn't there for them. When they're sitting down there with this work, there just wasn't anybody really holding it all together, but I have found ways, I think, to do a little bit better at that, and my students say that it's helped them, you know, some. It's always still been difficult, but here's some of what I did. The main thing that I'm going to show you is I did a lot of assignments encased in slideshows, like Google slideshows, which you can pass out in Google Classroom, each to an individual student. And you'll see what that means, but there's not just information, but assessments and other things like that. I'll talk about that more. I did a lot of video intros to units, things like that, just because my voice at the beginning of a unit for students or at the beginning of a quarter for parents explaining how things are going to go is very helpful. And then finally, I did a lot of video walkthroughs of the assignments that I did create for special ed students and really ultimately people that just needed a little extra help. I don't give the answers, but I just sort of go through and put things in context. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's a slideshow I did in the middle of it. And I try to use a lot of moving animation and things like that, but we're talking about energy. And what I'm doing here is these are almost like things that I might say. You know, picture me saying these things to a class and then posing a question and then picture them. Well, what? You got to throw in a little moment of lightness once in a while, folks. And it helps to just throw things like this in. But anyway, we're back to it. And what I'm actually doing is I'm building models for them in the same way that we would do in classes, little bit by little bit, and doing the best I can. And let me tell you, I'm working off of a PowerPoint that came from a curriculum we use, but I have heavily modified it with animations, making it so that it is sort of phrase-wise, moment-wise, what's happening in the conversation about a topic. And I'm able to sort of get across conversationally, in my mind anyway, something that they can go backwards and forwards through as many times as you want. So this is better than a video because you've got your fingers on the control. I'm paging through this thing right now. And so, okay, that's one thing. Another thing that really helps is that in science, we like to set up phenomena like this. How does the acorn turn into the oak? You can ask for initial thoughts. And in these presentations, they can escape out of present mode and just type right into a text box. And so do that, then they continue on. They would get more information on the topic. This is just sort of a simple idea, but then it asks a few clarifying questions that I might ask them to do in a journal in their own notes. Then you see we're returning to the model that we set up in a previous exercise, coming back to it and asking questions about it. So here's a lab that I did. This is a standard lab that is done in every biology classroom in the United States. You use a color changing solution and you do exercise and you breathe into it to show that you produce more carbon dioxide. But what I did is I embedded it in a slideshow. So they start with this, and then they come to a video clip of me, which I've muted, thankfully, that sort of brings up some things that we might be looking for, as we might need a reminder before the lab, gives them a place to write a couple of pre-lab questions, and then we go on to the part where they might type in their evidence, as I said, and then this is the part where I actually go do the lab. I run up and down my stairs 5 times, and and then I come and I usually come busting through the door in just a second, and I come and I breathe into the solution for a few seconds, and and then you'll see the color change will appear thanks to our wonderful document cameras, and then the students have a chance to look at the evidence as it develops. And as you can imagine, this is followed by a place where they could input the data, give their interpretations, talk about what it means, refer back to the model, all the sort of things we do in the lab. Okay, so moving quickly, because I really want to spend time on the last thing. This is, I did a lot of drag and drop because Google Slides allows a nice interface for making things like this. And the students love the drag and drop, but also it's not just because of that. I was able to do a lot of very intricate paper and pencil activities that I'm able to give to them online now, because instead of cutting up little element cards, for example, and putting them into order based on properties that are in a table or things that they look up, they have that information and they take that data, and they, as you can see right here in my little GIF that I made, they're putting them in place to show trends on the periodic table. So here's another one. And yeah, it is a big deal, actually. It's a really big deal. I put this stuff out on the chemistry teacher groups, and they go crazy for it because it's the same thing they were doing in their class with a meaningful visual interface that gets the idea across. So, and this, I put this in for Steve just because I don't know when the last time Steve saw a phosphorus PCl3 molecule, but here's one, and I saved one more electron to put in just so Steve could see it, because you know what? Interestingly, Google Drawings doesn't let you scribble dots. You can only do big circles. So I make a big field of circles that they can drag around and do what they want with, and it's more fun, and they get into it. And let me go back to present mode here. Here's another drag and drop that's just, this gets into another issue, which is assessment. I went through all of our chemistry tests, and I found that there was not, and I'm not kidding, a single answer to any textbook question, or anything that you can't find in Quizlet or something like that. So how do you create questions where you don't say the question? and so this is one that I love, and this is the SP, D, and F, as you chemists will know, each go in one of these colored blocks. And if you learned your periodic table the way I wanted you to, you're going to know which one. And then this is my really favorite sort of assessment one, which is explain the meme. I don't have to type the question because, if you're studying chemistry and you can't answer this question, well, then you need to go back and I didn't have to type a question. I love it. So, okay, I am going to take the remainder of my time to talk to you about just the most wonderful thing that I think has happened in my whole career. And full disclosure, I am on the board of Bonneville Environmental Education Center, but when I realized that we were going to be doing our pandemic semester, we expended some very real treasure on our side and Bonneville on their side with some grant money that they had to put together a really cool 8-video journaling and nature drawing series that we integrated into an outdoor ecology curriculum. That's it in a nutshell. And so you see Patty Smith here, who is just a treasure, right? If you know Patty, you know that she's one of the most engaging, wonderful people. And so she and I worked very closely together to come up with a series of videos that would parallel the biology class and also give our young naturalist club a way to engage with the nature. And so let me show you a little bit of what we did. I'm going to so we started out with everybody picking a journaling site. I so apologize for the format error. Oh, how frustrating. But a 4 senses tour of your journaling site. Students had to pick somewhere in their backyard or barring that, a local park, or barring that, a median or a planter in a parking lot with plants or something in it. And first you just go around and do a 4 senses tour because no tasting things in nature. And anyway, here's Patty talking about all the things that we might learn from this beautiful fungus that we found in the trails there at Bonneville. And so that's followed by making an actual map of your place, which again, I don't have the sound on here, but what I do want to show you is that Patty talks about how you might go about mapping a site that you encounter. Let me put it right about here, because here come her little friends, Do and, oh, I forget the other one's name, Pumpkin maybe. But she's been studying these beavers for 13 years. And so the first thing that she does, I have to find the shot, I guess, is she shows the map of that she's been keeping. So she gives them a sense of what you really can do if you want to pay attention to a natural space. And I'll move on from this one, but so making a map, and that is followed by, advance this here, our own work. So I had students pick research sites, and they uploaded them all to Padlet, and you can see that the students have all their sites here, and we were able to interact with all of them and talk about who lived where and not exactly where, but then they uploaded pictures. We did sound mapping of our sites, and then this was the slideshow assignment goes along with actually making a map of your own site at your house. And you can see here, I even give them instructions on how to pace off a measurement, because we don't know if they got a measuring tape at their house, right? I think I do, but I can't find it. Anyway, so I teach them how to pace off their site and all the things that go involved in mapping it, including, if you see this go by, this is a GIF I made, using Google Earth as your starting point and taking a shot of your place. Anyway, moving on to show you a little bit more of what we did. We then started actually looking at our land, and this was from Patty, and this was called Herbivore Safari, as you see. And so Patty is looking at all the signs of herbivores that we're going to see in nature, including these amazing little aphids here, elder aphids. There she is with her possum Persephone talking. It's just utterly engaging, folks, and it just meant so much to be able to have students experience this and experience Patty, and to go out, and I'll keep moving to look at these things. The herbivore safari was followed by a plant identification project that students had to do in their site, and you had them going out making plant identifications, but also just using different characteristics to figure out what was there. And as you can see, trying to do some actual identification. And this was followed by I had them upload their photos to a plants of BUHS. In the interest of not disclosing student names, I only put the ones on here that I took myself. There are a plethora of them, I assure you. And then these are the herbivores of BUHS, which thankfully came up once without the names on it. So we can see all the pictures of bugs from our pitfall traps and sweep nets and things like that that we got from Bonnievale as part of the program here to go out and try to identify insects. And again, folks, outside now, I can't say it enough about how much this meant to us to be able to look at some of the drawings. Every Wednesday was draw something day. And so that was your assignment, was to go outside, get away, see that they had paper in their hands, and to try to draw something. You might have noticed in one of the other things that I had journaling and nature drawing resources. And Patty also, one of her videos is what to bring to go out at your site. And so anyway, and it didn't matter what learner level you were at. I mean, here we have some obviously amazing stuff from a true budding naturalist. And then, you know, we've got this, but that person went outside for or however long it took for them to try to draw a bird. And if you know those two students, you can deduce a lot about their learning levels right from those, but it doesn't matter. They all gain something meaningful from it. I've given everybody the link to this, and in it, there is a link to a full notebook exemplar. Actually, I already have it open, so I'm just quickly just going to flip through this because I just want you to see, you know, what one student was able to bring to it, studying a beaver pond through the fall and the winter and learning about it, cattails, and these are the, you know, this is amazing. That's how many hours did this person spend outside in our pandemic fall? So I am so proud and thrilled and happy about the work that we did. I honestly can't even begin to tell you, and I'm thrilled to say that all of these site activities are going to become a permanent part, I hope, of what we do at BUHS with our students. So even when we're in class together, they're going to be studying sites, and we're going to be doing an example site in the courtyard. And so this is part of what we're doing now. And so anyway, I really hope that you get a sense of just how absolutely wonderful this was. And I'm pretty emotional about it. I'm under control right now. It's been a difficult time for all of us, but it's meant so much to have Michelle and Beak as incredible partners in helping this happen and just getting our kids outside and finding and encouraging interesting ways for them to engage with their stuff. And so with that, I will say thank you, and I will go back to my my life. Actually, make sure you get outside, folks. It's been good for us, and it's been good for our students. And I thank you for the opportunity to let me tell you about this.
Thank you, Mike.
I don't know if I have time. If anybody has a question or anything, I'd be happy to. But I feel like I've used a lot of time too, so that's up to the.
Any questions?
Numbers.
Nope. You got some applause, some clapping.
Thank
No
you.
questions I can see. You did such a good job. Nobody has any questions.
Awesome. Well, I've provided the link, and I will say one more thing, which is that each of those slides that indicates another presentation is linked to that actual presentation. So the board will be able to page through oodles and eons of this stuff and see what we did.
Actually, I have a question. What's the answer to the meme question about the elements and the noble gases?
Well, the noble gases have a full electron shell. Everybody else on the periodic table needs to go to work and find a way to fill that up. But the noble gases can just stay home and think about how great they are.
Excellent. Excellent. Pretty good example of showing the deep understanding of the concept.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Yep. Sean has a question. Go ahead, Sean.
It's really more just a comment. I just feel like this is unbelievable. This is what it means to be at home in Southern Vermont. And so I'm blown away by all it, and of course, including Beak. What a star. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I do have to say one other thing, which is I cannot begin to express how tired and exhausted we all are. You know, each of those things takes about 9 hours to put together. And so there's been a lot of 14-hour weekends and 18-hour days, but it's been worth it, and I'm glad to have been able to do it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for mentioning that explicitly, because one of the things we've made a commitment to is to find ways to provide more time for doing this kind of work. Which, as you know, is not easy.
I have a question, but I can't raise my hand. I can't find the hand thing.
Well, raise
I
your
see.
hand right now because I can see you and then I'll know.
Okay. Yeah, just a great presentation.
Thank you.
Boy, Patty Smith, what a godsend that she and others are. But and you. But I'm just curious to know how you've been addressing climate change in your curriculum.
Oh wow, how am I not? I teach environmental science, and so in the environmental science class, it's very much oriented to climate change. We're building up to that now. We have a dedicated textbook that is about climate change. So it isn't, we don't use the climate section of the other textbook, which we have the other textbook, but we decided to get a dedicated book, and it's fantastic. It's deep stuff. And before that, I mean, I can't speak for the whole department, but I could. We are integrating. I can't think of one of our classes that doesn't have climate integrated into it already, sort of as a matter of course. But that's an action item to continue to make that a more powerful experience. There are instances in each of our heterogeneous required classes where we are talking about climate, and then of course in my class we're talking about climate.
Great.
I hope that answers your question.
Great, thanks.
Of course.
Go ahead, Steve.
All right, thank you. And the other thing, Michelle and I have talked with our STEM Academy that we're looking into the possibility of doing a climate change and sustainability thread as part of that academy. So that's not going to come out next year, but we're hoping that we can begin to develop the courses that would make another self-sustaining thread for climate change. And thank you, Mike and Michelle. And Mike, thank you for your enthusiasm for everything that you do. It's certainly shown through tonight. Thank you for that great presentation. We're going to turn to social studies, and we had a group of students and teachers participate in a mock trial event that goes on all year. And I'm going to let Tessa Anders and Ashley Netto take the reins now. Ashley is one of our social studies teachers. Tessa is our chair of our social studies department. So I will turn it over to Tessa.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us. So I'm here with my colleague, as Steve mentioned, Ashley Netto, and also with two students. We have with us Iva Armour-Jones and Maggie Fraser-Olson. So Ashley and I are going to give you just a very brief overview of what the Mock Trial Club is and some of the advantages that we think it has for student participants. And then Iva and Maggie are going to give you a brief demo. They're going to do a direct examination session from our competition case that we just used in an exhibition competition this past Saturday. And that's just about a 3-minute or so questioning session that they developed together. So Mock Trial Club is an extracurricular club. In a typical non-COVID year, we get a case in January or early February that is a mock trial case that is a series of affidavits for a case that is fictional, but sometimes based upon a real case. And so the affidavits are the sworn statements of 3 witnesses for both the prosecution and defense sides, or for the plaintiff and the defense if it's a civil case. And then exhibits such as legal documents, photographs, et cetera, that students can use for the case. And each school uses that same case material to develop direct examination questions for their own witnesses and cross-examination questions for the opposing team, which comes from another school. And so that means that they are creating the theory of the case, they are creating the questions, the witnesses have to learn their statements by heart, opening and closing statements. And it's really a wonderful opportunity for critical thinking skills, public speaking skills, reasoning of various different kinds, and it's a lot of fun. And so the first Saturday in April, traditionally our competition is up at Vermont Law School, and there's a panel of federal and district judges and some attorneys, sometimes depending on the numbers that they have, who judge those cases and then, or judge the trials within the day. And then there typically teams would advance toward a final trial. This year we did the whole thing on Zoom. It was an adventure, to say the least, to try to modify it that way, right, Ashley? And all. But the students were amazing. They met, some students would be in person in the building, other students would be at home on Zoom because of our different grade level schedules. We typically work with an attorney coach for a number of years. George Anthes from Castello Valenti and Gentry has been working with us. We were not able to do that this year because of COVID protocols, but the students just did a wonderful job of coming up with what was, I thought, a very polished exhibition case, despite those hurdles. Ashley, is there anything you want to add before we turn it over to the students?
Sure. I definitely want to echo Tessa on how proud we are of our students this year for pulling it together and doing such an incredible job under circumstances that were challenging. The mock trial competition in Vermont has been going on for 5 years. It was actually canceled this year. It's usually run by the Vermont Bar Association, and they made the truly understandable decision to cancel the competition. But there were teachers from 4 schools throughout the high school, Tessa and I in Brattleboro, 2 teachers from Rutland, 1 from Milton, and 1 from Mount Mansfield, who thought, well, if one thing doesn't have to be canceled, maybe let's just try to do something. So with definitely the coordination of one real go-getter from Mount Mansfield who really helped to coordinate the whole thing, we managed to pull it together and make it happen for probably about, I would say, at least 30 students throughout the state that got to do it. And Maggie was joining us for the first time this year, and Iva's been with Mock Trial since she was a 10th grader, right, Iva? So it was just really great that we were able to pull something off, even if it was virtual and not completely the same as what we would have liked from the past.
And just for a little bit of context for the short demo that Iva and Maggie will do for you, this was a negligent homicide or manslaughter case that involved a grandparent that had given opioid cough suppressant to a 2-year-old. That was a medication that was prescribed to a much older sibling, which arguably or allegedly resulted in the death of the child. So the Vermont Bar Association, this is a case that we actually used in competition in a previous year. And so they do often choose cases where we're grappling with some pretty heavy stuff and some pretty intense material. And so that's part of the process for students too, is to process some of that material, to have conversations about it, to deal with it together in a productive way. And like I said, there's a lot of critical thinking and public speaking skills that you'll see from our 2 students here today. And Iva and Maggie, you can, whenever you're ready, move into your direct examination questions, but also if you have just perspectives or thoughts you'd like to share, you should feel free to do that, of course.
Sure. Well, thank you for having us. It's great to be here. Can everyone hear me all right? Great.
Yeah, thank you.
So
can you all hear me?
Kind of, yeah.
So Maggie and Iva, there's a little bit of audio reverberation. So you might find that for your demo that you need to mute when you aren't speaking, even during the questioning. So Iva, maybe mute while she's giving her responses and vice versa. If you could do that, thanks.
Sounds good. Just for more context, I'm the attorney who's direct examining my witness, who's a doctor who is involved in the case, who's by the defense is being accused of giving negligent advice or advising the defendant to give cough syrup to the kid. There was no prescription or proof of this, but that's what the defense is claiming. So that's what our argument will be centered around. Maggie, are you good to go? All right, sweet. So please state your name and credentials for the court.
My name is Dr. Max Payne, and I am a pediatrician with a practice in Knoxville. I received my bachelor's in biology from Berea College and went on to Boston University's School of Medicine, where I earned my medical doctorate.
And do you have an area of specialty in your medical practice?
Yes, I have extensive experience in diagnosing and treating common childhood diseases, as can be seen by published works regarding the clinical characteristics of common childhood diseases and the treatment of children in intensive care.
And what is your relationship with this case?
I'm the local physician who saw the victim, Abby Oddington, for her illness. I examined her, gave my diagnosis, and instructed the defendant to bring her back if her symptoms drastically changed.
And what was the victim's condition when you saw her?
She presented with a cough, fever, fatigue, and occasional vomiting. There was nothing that would have been remotely indicative of a serious medical condition.
And did you reach a diagnosis for Miss Oddington's condition?
The prognosis I reached was that Abby had the common cold, a diagnosis which I still maintain.
And have you ever been wrong in a diagnosis before?
Only once during my time in Michigan. The particular clinic that I worked at induced a lot of stress for me. With trying to keep up with the clinic's billable hour requirements and the clinic going into debt, I admit that I made a mistake on the child's diagnosis, which I accept full responsibility for. But as I accept responsibility for that, I subsequently denied culpability here, and I offered sound medical advice in the case of Miss Oddington.
Attorney Armour Jones, I'm going to interrupt you before your next question really briefly. Dr. Payne, we're having a little trouble with your audio, and while we love to see your face, you might try turning your video off as you're answering the questions to see if the audio quality is better. Thanks so much.
Maggie, do you want to test and see if that's better?
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Were there any consequences of this misdiagnosis?
Yes, I lost my practicing license for a brief period of time, but due to the circumstances surrounding my mistake and my medical knowledge, I was relicensed in the state of New Justice.
Did you prescribe anything to Miss Oddington?
No, I did not prescribe anything to Miss Oddington, nor did I suggest the use of any medication.
And what, upon your diagnosis, did you recommend the defendant do for her granddaughter's condition?
As any doctor interacting with common cold would, I told the defendant to make sure Abby was drinking plenty of fluid, getting enough rest, and come back if her slight fever drastically changed and exceeded 103 degrees.
And in your professional opinion, what was the victim's death a result of?
In my professional opinion, the victim's death was a result of an overdose of Tucinex.
And what led you to this conclusion?
Abby died from a severe overdose of hydrocodone, one of the two major drugs in Tucinex. Continuous use of the Tucinex, which never should have been administered in the first place, attacked her central nervous system and caused something called severe overdose apnea, circulatory collapse. As a result, her respiratory rate reached to a point where it killed her. It was not a result of the illness she was previously diagnosed with.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Iva and Maggie. One thing that I just wanted to briefly add for people's benefit of understanding what this process is like for the students. In addition to doing the direct examination, like you just heard, they would potentially be dealing with objections being raised by the opposing counsel. And they would, Iva, as the attorney, would have had the opportunity to do the same thing during the cross-examination. And Maggie, as a witness, would have dealt with cross-examination questions that she was not directly prepared for, because that would come from the came from the opposing school. And so they're learning, you know, some of our mock trial students may be interested in going into law professions, others really are not at all, and that's fine in both cases. But they do learn about evidentiary rules, objections, and a lot of components of the criminal justice system and the civil court system, depending on the year and the case, in ways where they really get to apply it in ways that are hopefully fun, but also intellectually challenging. Maggie and Iva, did you have just any thoughts about mock trial that you wanted to share? No pressure to do that, but anything you wanted to say?
I just think it's been a really great and a powerful part of my high school experience. I think it's been something that's helped me acquire better public speaking skills, which has definitely helped me with college interviews. Just, you know, it makes you have to think more critically and more on your feet. I do want to go into law, so that has always been something I've really enjoyed. And no, I think it's a great environment. The people have always been super kind, very non-judgy. It's just a really like welcoming, which is funny because it's law, but it's a very welcoming environment. So I think it's a huge gift that our school has, for sure.
Thank you so much. I think that's everything that we have for you all, unless there are questions. Ashley, did I cut you off? Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think I'm good, other than that the competition sounds like it'll be a go for next year, and it's open to all students.
Thank you. Any questions? More applause and thumbs up. And a question from Michelle.
Hey, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Maggie and Iva, both of you guys did a really good job, and that's awesome for you to come and do this at our meeting for us. I'm curious about the club aspect of it, actually. Just what is the demand, and do you meet during the school day, during like ACE, or is it an after school thing?
Maggie, do you want to answer, or do you want me to? Or we both can.
Well, I can't speak to what it would be like in a non-COVID situation, because unfortunately I only got to do it 1 year when we were all on Zoom. I would say I know that they met in the mornings before school my junior year. So the year before that, I wasn't able to come because I didn't have transportation. So that's really all I know about what it's like on a regular basis.
I can speak a bit to what it's been like in the past years. So traditionally we'd come in at about 8 in the morning on, I think, Tuesdays and Fridays. And we'd come in, we'd be there till about 8:35 or before classes start. We'd get our case, like we said, in about January, but prior to January, we'd usually do a practice case to get everyone reacquainted, introduce new people, the material, which is really helpful because it helps people figure out what the expectations of the workload are. So it kind of gives people the chance to decide if they want to be an attorney, if they want to be a witness, if they just want to help with more of the manufacturing of the questions. So we'd start at 8, we'd go from 8 to about 8:35 twice a week. And then as we get closer to competition, we would have sometimes ACE meetings, sometimes after school meetings as well. But you're expected, and you read the whole case, which, as you know, most cases are very lengthy. I think our one this year was about 75 pages. So you read through it, you annotate it, and depending on your various roles, you either write questions or memorize your statements. So it's definitely, there's some significant work that goes into it. And it depends on your role again, but we really utilize the before and after school time periods.
Cool. And was there a certain class you took that kind of led you down to join this club, or did you just see that it was an opportunity and see it posted or something?
I had the pleasure of being in both Miss Netto's and Miss Anders' classes in my grade 10 year. And I think that year I kind of was really solidifying my love for the humanities. And I kind of was indoctrinated then and have been there ever since. But I think it was really that I had some upperclassmen that I was kind of familiar with that told me about the club. And, you know, small enough community that you kind of hear things. The career like fair we have also helped with that too.
We do offer a law course as an elective, Law and American Society, but most of our mock trial students don't come to us because they've taken that first. In fact, you know, there is some overlap, but many of the students in mock trial take law afterward or in subsequent years. And the Law and American Society elective really, it's a constitutional, criminal, and civil law survey, but it focuses much more on things like issues of equity in the criminal justice system and mass incarceration than it does in trial procedure specifically. We do a mock trial at the very end of the course, but they're not really the same thing and they're not really directly linked.
I tend to encourage everyone I see in my classes who seems to like to argue to join the club.
Any other questions? Thank you, Michelle.
I can't find my hand thing, but I have a couple of questions.
That's okay, Tim, go ahead.
Okay. How many students are in the participate typically in the club? And I imagine that you deal with race issues pretty much, or is that right?
So we typically have 12 students who are on the competition team with an active role as an attorney or a witness, because we typically have a prosecution and a defense team or a plaintiff and a defense team. This year we had 7 students participate in the exhibition competition because of the challenges, I think, of meeting via Zoom, et cetera. But we sometimes have had up to about 15 to 20 students that are participating on a regular basis, but in support roles. And in terms of issues of race, do you mean in terms of racial justice and the content of the
Racial justice, right? Yeah.
The Law and American Society course deals with that extensively. That's one of the main themes of the course. In terms of the mock trial competition cases, we don't have any choice in the cases that are selected. The Vermont Bar picks those. And so while issues of racial justice could come up in them, that's not a primary focus of the competition cases typically. Yeah. Ashley, do you think that's a fair assessment?
Definitely. And we get to pick the cases that we practice with, but due to the way that mock trial cases are written, I think that of course a case really involving too many issues of race probably wouldn't come up because they are written to allow anybody to play the witness roles. So the people that are testifying in the trial, the cases are not written so people are of a certain race or gender. Students don't wear costumes if they're of a specific age. So that the way that the courses are written to be inclusive of who's participating, they tend to not really include issues of racial justice in the same way as certainly the law class and all of the history courses of UH do.
Could I jump in something really quickly? I was going to say that I think while obviously the cases are manufactured to be a very kind of flexible entity, if you will, to whatever student body is working with it, I'd say one of the really great things about the club is that it opens up the discussion of nuance a lot in and around our criminal justice system. And because you have 2 teachers who are really well versed in, precedent and cases and just, the humanities in general, I think while you might not necessarily directly interface with that issue in the cases, there's a lot of discussion around what these implications would be like in real life. I think last year we had a police brutality case, and that definitely was a really significant component of the discussion of what this entails. So it might be there, but in a different, not like necessarily in the way you would anticipate.
What a great response. You're going to be a great lawyer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions? Oh, thank you very much, Tessa and Ashley for setting this up, and for Iva and Maggie for showing us what you did. It's nice insight into this really terrific program. So thank you. Look forward to hearing from you all again sometime. So I think we are, Steve, is there anything else you wanted to highlight other than the band, which or the, yeah, I won't say any more than just the band.
Yep.
yeah, I think actually they're coming into the building now. They're going to be a few minutes, probably 7:20 or 7:30.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great. Okay. All right.
Okay.
No, and I just want to applaud the work that Tessa and Ashley have done, and the students as well. I think Tessa and Ashley are very modest. They spend many hours doing this. They spend a lot of time talking about it. One of the great things is they'll actually do the mock trial for us some years, and we'll actually be able to go up and watch it be played out, and that's just it's a great treat to see that. So I want to thank them both and for the students for being here tonight as well. Thanks.
Okay. Well, don't leave yet, because we've got one more question. Jody, go ahead.
Am I unmuted now, David?
Yes.
Okay, Jody Normando here. And watching these programs, Steve, makes me want to come back to school. A few years ago, I was a student at BUHS, and something that has been on my mind for quite a while, and I would like to ask you about it. One of my favorite programs in BUHS at the time was a civics class. And knowing what's been going on in the world around us, I would think it would be behoove everybody to have some sort of a civics class. And I was wondering if you do have such an animal in the school curriculum now, Steve. Thank you.
Yep. We do not have a formal civics class any longer, but I'll let Tessa and Ashley talk a little bit about how they web civics into the work they do, because it's really embedded in a lot of their courses. I'll let Ashley first, and then Tessa.
Sure. Yeah, I would say that we definitely embed some civic ideals and ideas about the role of government, the responsibilities of government. Do our values live up to our actions as a country? And pretty much every course that we offer. I would really say though that the closest thing that we have to a civics course, as many people imagine it, that's required, might be the diversity ed course, because that really does look at the role of government, and it looks at the role of different groups of people. It looks at activism, it looks at marginalization. So even though it's not called civics, in my opinion, and I've taught that course quite a few times, that's really close to, I think, what a lot of people want out of a civics course.
Yeah, I would agree. I would echo what Ashley just said. And also, we do offer an elections and government course, but that's an elective rather than a required class. But as Ashley and Steve both mentioned, our approach to a lot of content in the social studies department has been to try to ensure that we're integrating it across all of our courses, so that students are grappling with issues of civics and learning about civic structures in all of their social studies courses from different angles. So in a comparative politics course, they're looking at civics in different societies and what that looks like and how that's structured. And as Ashley mentioned, civics is really a big part of the diversity education course, which really is a course about what's the society that we live in and what do we want it to look like, and what are the roles of different groups and people in bringing that about in the future. And it's really about equity and change making, and various different kinds of change making, whether that's within the political structure or in more of an activism model. And certainly in history classes, understanding civics is foundational to understanding any of the historical topics that we're covering. So it is woven into the coursework rather than being separated out as if it's kind of its own content that's out in space.
Jody, did you have another question? Oh, no, I see you just muted. Okay.
Oh, no, I was just wondering if any of those courses were required, so that every student who graduates from high school understands your elections, understands your democracy, et cetera. And
diversity education is a course that all 9th grade students take at BUHS. And all students take US history courses, and all students take either comparative politics or world cultures and geography, which would look at civics from a more international angle. And then above and beyond that, there are electives where certainly we're also discussing and working with issues of civics as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's an excellent segue into the next item on the agenda, diversity education. Every 3 or 4 meetings, I asked our diversity coordinator, Michaela Sims, to have 2 or 3 of the teacher leaders that are working with our staff and students in each of the schools to come on and tell us a little bit about the progress that they're making, the things that they're working on. So as a demonstration of our commitment, the commitment we made in July, which I want to just remind everybody once again, is now available with one click only at wsesdu.org/SOCJUS, SOCJUS. So it's wsesdu.org/SOCJUS. So Michaela, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? I'll try to be short and sweet. I just want to say that even in this time of Zoom, that there's a lot of things happening in terms of equity and social justice work in the district. Currently, we're planning to have our end of the year retreat for all the teacher leaders on May 12th, which is a Wednesday. So we're in the process of planning that, and we're excited that we'll be vaccinated and able to be together. The other thing is that we do have affinity groups meeting, just so you'll know. There is the BIPOC one that involves people from all around, and then there's a district base currently that just started, LGBTQ+ group that just met, and we'll probably meet in person one more time in June based on people's capacity, but people were really excited about that. In addition, today was our Deconstructing Whiteness group, and so that was a pretty decent sized study group today that we had a really good discussion at. And we're just looking at things to do to really confront the current occurrence of anti-Asian racism. And so we're looking at activities we can do kind of uplift not just the faculty and staff, but the students, and have a place for them to talk. And so we're strategizing as to what will be effective and a thoughtful thing to do. So if people have ideas, please contact me. I would appreciate that, and be connecting with administrators around that soon too. So I'll just open up with Green Street is here. So you want to give us a first spiel, Tracy?
Yes, I'm going to probably talk without unmuting. So hi, I'm Tracy Benet-Perrin. I'm the school counselor at Green Street School. I'm also one of the teacher leaders at Green Street, and I've prepared a little something, mostly because I get nervous speaking in front of people. So bear with me as I kind of check my notes to make sure I'm covering everything. I think probably the most exciting work that we've embarked on this school year has been our DEC committee, and that's composed of teachers and paraeducators. And we meet monthly, actually more than monthly, to kind of plan our staff meetings, talk about the needs of our students, come up with articles, videos, podcasts, and different resources to share with our staff. As a committee, we're really evolving. It's been really exciting to kind of figure out how do we work with our colleagues on things like race that can be kind of tricky to talk about. So we've formatted our staff meetings in different ways, and we've decided on this one format that seems to be effective, of having DEC committee facilitators working with set groups. And we've been doing that for a couple months now. And I think pretty much across the board, we're all feeling really comfortable within our groups, and we're having some really deep and meaningful conversations in those groups. As part of our process, we've also learned that we need to make sure we're saving room for all members of the group to speak. We have tried Jamboards, we're trying annotating, we're trying all sorts of different things to allow all voices to be heard. So that's been really exciting. The other really cool thing about our DEC committee is that it's a group of individuals who have so much to contribute, and each person has been empowered and continues to contribute in great ways. This past staff meeting, one of our paras, Mira, did this amazing presentation on anti-Asian violence, and she just did an amazing job. So that's been really exciting. It's been really incredible to be part of that. We've also done a parent forum. We purchased the Hate You Give, and we gave it to parents and teachers, and we had an adult book talk that we did over Zoom. We had about 10 participants, and that was a really, it was exciting to kind of talk with parents as staff members, as people. And so that was a really cool opportunity for us. in the classroom during Black Lives Matters week in school. The first week in February, all our classrooms, including our remote classrooms, embraced using the 13 Black Lives Matters principles and the resources that were recommended by the DEC group. And all classrooms were able to build lessons and talk to students about Black Lives Matter in school. Most of our teachers in our classrooms have continued this amazing work through the spring and are committed to this work. I learn about all these really great things that are happening in the classroom in our staff meetings and our small group time. For students, we had a group of students get together and organize a Black Lives Matter and Gay Pride March this fall to show solidarity. It was inspiring to watch their commitment and their passion to support one another and to make change within their community. It was all sixth graders. I think we maybe had 1 or 2 BAM students. So that was pretty cool. Then myself as the school counselor, I get to go into classrooms and talk to kids about, social emotional learning. And one of the commitments I've made this school year is to incorporate diverse books, such as The Paperboy. I use that to teach responsibility this week. It's by Dave Pilkey. It's about a boy who wakes up every morning and goes out and delivers papers. I will use videos and images to infuse multicultural perspective. In first grade, we talked about Yo-Yo Ma and his respect for different cultures. So that's been kind of exciting. Our next step as the Diversity Equity Committee is to review our action plan that we wrote this summer. We're going to identify priorities for the upcoming school year. We'll continue to comb through resources to increase our knowledge and awareness. Our hope is to build some affinity groups for students and perhaps tap into some mentors at BUHS to support this important work. We need to do outreach to BIPOC parents, and we are committed to hiring a more diverse staff.
Thank you, Tracy. That's terrific.
Thank you, Tracy. Amazing.
Thank you.
Exactly. And then from EES, we have Sandy Stark.
Do I actually have to follow Tracy? Oh my goodness. I was dreading that. As I was hearing you going through your list, I was like, oh no, I hope I'm not picked next.
This is a friendly audience. You're okay.
So my name is Sandy Stark, and I work at Early Education Services. And my role there is I am the Parent-Child Center Coordinator. So just to explain a little bit, EES is very different in sense of other schools as part of the school district. We are Head Start and Early Head Start classrooms, as well as other Early Head Start and Head Start programming. We have home visiting, but a huge chunk of what we do is Early Head Start and Head Start. But we are also the Parent-Child Center, which I don't know if many of you know, but there are 15 Parent-Child Centers throughout the state of Vermont. And the goal of each Parent-Child Center is to support families with young children. So that is my piece at Early Education Services, is I am the Parent-Child Center Coordinator. So I oversee those programs that support families in our region with young children. And our programs are open to anyone in our region that has a young child. So anyway, I just had to give you that background so you have a sense of, where I'm coming from and the work that I do. So I am one of the teacher leaders at Early Education Services, as well as Ann Koplinko-Lure is also the other teacher leader. And she is a teacher in one of our Early Head Start classrooms. So we are pretty new to having a diversity and equity committee at EES. We just started last July. So a big part of that was getting a committee together. So we've been meeting monthly since then. And a big part of what we've been working on since we started was reading this book called My Grandmother's Hands. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. It's a pretty amazing book. The author's name is Resmaa Menakem, and it has a very different focus on racism. It really focuses on racial trauma and what that is and how it came about and what we can do about it. So we just recently finished the book, and we are now planning 2 trainings for staff, one in April and then a follow-up in May to basically share the concepts of this book with the rest of the staff, as well as have some discussions and do some work on trying to integrate some of those concepts into the work that we do at EES, as well as just, into our own lives. So that's a big part of what we've been focusing on, is that book, and trying to figure out a way to get that information out to other EES staff. Recently, we also did do some work. Our committee also did some work on our strategic plan, making sure that we had 2 objectives that address diversity and equity and social justice. So we have 2 objectives. One that's building up awareness among staff of diversity, equity, and social justice, as well as trying to increase the diversity of our staff at EES. So those are the main things that we've been doing. And our Diversity and Equity Committee is made up of a variety of different staff. And we do have a parent also on the committee as well. So that's what we've been up to at EES. And Michaela's been helping us a lot. She joins us at a lot of our meetings and is helping guide us through this. Like I said, we're pretty new at having a committee at EES, and we're very excited about it, though.
Thank you, Sandy. That's really great to hear. Really terrific.
Thank you, Sandy. Amazing. I feel like y'all are I feel like it's really brave and it's hard when it's new, like everyone has growing pains. So I feel like it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We've been really excited about it. And we really thank you, Michaela, for all your support and help in getting us off the ground with this. Thank you.
So next, you want to have BUHS, Mike Sosak?
Yes, and unfortunately I have to follow Tracy and Sandra now, so but I will do my best. We at BUHS we do have a diversity and equity committee, and it's composed of 12 people who represent all the different departments at BUHS. And 2 things I want to talk about tonight. One is that we've constructed this series of workshops called what we're calling critical consciousness. And we ran the first one in February. We had about 70 people at that workshop. And we broke into breakout rooms. So we were working in small groups. But basically what critical consciousness is really taking a look at ourselves in a pretty in-depth way. And we got people engaged in doing that by really addressing 3 questions. One is looking at the words and terms we used as kids and as young adults in our lives that had some tie to racial issues. Secondly, looking at things that people that we admired as young adults and as children who were from marginalized or a BIPOC groups of people. And thirdly, we asked people to look at what biases were prevalent in their families and how they manifested themselves. So as in our first session we ran, again, in these breakout sessions, most sessions, in fact, no session, I think we had 10 different breakout groups. None of them got through all 3 of those topics. We ran out of time. So we're going to have the second part of our series is to pick up with where we kind of left off with that, which was the third part, looking at what's prevalent in your families, in our families, and how it manifested itself. And so that we're going to be doing next week. As a matter of fact, we're running our second series next week. And then we will lead, next week, we'll stop that session with asking people to think about what they've done in terms of looking at themselves and looking how they've been brought up and what's happened in their families, to then carry it forward to what are they bringing into the classroom. And so our June session will really focus on what they're bringing into the classroom and how that can affect the kids in the classroom. I will say the feedback on our first session was largely positive, but not completely. And part of the feedback we got is that some people had a really difficult time doing what we were asking them to do. Some people really struggled with it, and it's really kind of a self-examination, and some of the conversations can get pretty intense. So, but I do think, and for some of us, and I'll put myself in that category, it really is a matter of relearning things that are really kind of really embedded in us. And I'm older than most of you people in this meeting, but what I learned and in growing up in school and my family and so on, much of it I've had to relearn, or at least a lot of it, and that's a difficult process for many people. Okay, so that's about that series of 3 critical consciousness trainings we're doing, or workshops, I think a better term. The second thing we're doing next month, mostly in the first week in May, probably, we are participating with Sandglass Theater. Of those of you who know about Sandglass Theater in Putney, it is a theater that primarily uses puppets, and for both kids and adults, and their theme is often social justice themes. And so we're partnering with Sandglass Theater and bringing into our classrooms some things. And what we're bringing into the classroom with Sandglass's help is a Black puppeteer from North Carolina. And he's a man who has worked a lot with kids and adults and on social justice themes. And he's unusual in that he's a Black man in the puppet world, which is unusual, but a really impressive person. And so he's going to be bringing some of what he does into some of our classrooms at BUHS. And so that's happening. His stage name is Gigetto. So that is also happening, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting and different session, not only from what he does and the social justice theme, but to be also, because we don't have many people of color in role model teaching roles, kids will have an opportunity to see a person of color in those roles, and a pretty impressive and creative person. So, and I think you had some other plans for this person too at BAMS. Is that correct, Michaela?
That's the hope. I'm still, I have some things that I still need to send to Keith before we solidify
Okay,
that. But
all right,
yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Didn't want to take anybody by surprise, but we're working on some other
knows.
things that he might be able to do, because he's in a residency with Sandglass Theater for a few weeks, so we may be able to take other opportunities, use him in other ways. So those are the things that we're working on right now. Any questions about that?
Thank you, Mike. It's nice to get that sort of firsthand account of the really hard work that everybody needs to be doing. It is hard work, but it has to be done. And it's really exciting to hear that it's going on in so many different ways in so many different schools. So it's so astonishing that Michaela is able to organize, put all this together and get resources to people during a pandemic when you can't even sit down and talk or even drive over and hand something to somebody. So it's pretty impressive.
And I will reiterate what was said by others, that without Michaela behind us, we would have a hard time pulling all this off. So she's been a force that's kind of all over the place trying to help us make this go. So
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. We have one last quick and dirty, and Corey Sorensen from
I
Guilford.
don't know if he wants to hear you say that. Maybe that's why he's
Okay,
leaving.
I take it back. I shouldn't have said that.
Thanks, Michaela. Yeah, wow, so inspiring to hear what people are doing. And it's true that Michaela does support a lot of this work that we're doing. We meet bi-weekly as a diversity equity committee. We have parents, teachers, staff on our committee. And one of the components that's important to us is study. So we spend a portion of our meetings reviewing articles or watching videos and just talking about them amongst ourselves. And that carries over into our staff meetings where we're talking about race and racism, having the difficult conversations. Where do we see race and racism in our own lives, and how does that influence our practice in the classroom? We are excited about families that are interested in continuing to have family-based conversations about diversity and equity. And as a connection to that, we are continuing to organize. We took a hiatus because of coronavirus, our social justice lending library, which was a weekly meeting at the public library in Guilford, where there is a variety of books that people could borrow for free. And we did a read aloud and had conversations with kids and families and had snacks. We're also looking forward to diversity celebration in the month of May and displaying artwork from all the schools. So those are some of the things we're doing.
Can you say a little more about, or maybe Michaela say a little more about that? It's going to be a different kind of diversity day or diversity week this year, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So there won't be any like block off the street, street fair type of activities. But what there will be is like a menu board so that teachers will see all the activities that we have available virtually. That all the teachers are working, all the teacher leaders are scheduling things now. So they'll get information like that, and as well as resources they can use in the classroom. And so they'll be able to pick and choose or sign up for different activities. And hopefully some of these relationships will be long-term relationships that we can ask these artists to come back. The other thing that we'll have and look out for is we are currently designing the banner that'll go over Main Street. So even though we're not having the street fair, we'll still have a banner that goes over Main Street for at least 2 weeks. So that should be coming soon too. And our theme this year is Justice for All. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone for their dedication. It's so amazing. Thanks.
Thank you, Michaela, and all the teacher leaders. It's wonderful. And I'm not sure how this, if you wonder about whether you're on the right track, the band was supposed to be ready at 7:30 and it's exactly 7:30. And I'm wondering, Steve, if we're going to now get a little jazz band concert. I see Mr. Rice.
We're here and we're good to go. So
before you start,
hello,
quick question
hello
before
to
you
the
start.
board. So we're going to play a little bit and then we'll talk a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Okay, that's perfect.
All right. All right, ready? 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3. Dave, were you able to hear that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So let me just give you a little tour about what we have to do in order to be able to rehearse. So I'm going to show you the students rather than me. So we're on stage and the students are now putting back on their talking masks because, Evan, would you take that off and show them how it works when you play your instrument? Am I on you?
It's a little slit in the mask and we slip the instrument through the slit to be able to play while we're playing.
And show him the mask on the instrument too.
And down here, there's a mask over the bell with multiple layers to make sure nothing goes through it.
Right. So the students are all 6 feet apart from each other, except the trombones, because they need 9 feet. And then the trumpets are back there, also 6 feet from each other, side to side, 6 feet front to back. And so here we are on the stage. We only started being able to play together indoors about, well, right after February vacation was when we were able to start doing that. So we're a little on the under rehearsed side for this time of year, but we're really enjoying having the chance to play together. The band also, in the way that it's working this year, has also been rehearsing up here on stage, spilling down into the pit as well. And what I have to do is actually, when I'm leading the groups, I have to have a microphone and there's little speakers by each of the sections so that I don't have to talk in a super loud voice. So yeah, lots of new and strange things that we're doing, but we're making it work and we're loving the chance to play. Does anyone have questions, especially of the students?
Any questions? Please ask. Oh, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have to say that I'm so impressed, and I give all of the students so much credit. As a musician myself and a trumpet player, you guys sound really good considering all the obstacles and muffling your instruments. You're doing a great job. It's really wonderful perseverance. Bravo to all of you for sticking with it. It's hard. It's a hard thing to step back and have missing from your life when you're into it. So thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yay, great to have trumpet players on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice.
Thank you. Jackie?
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciated that. I thought that was fantastic. And with my own musical experience, I don't know if I could do it, having it be even more difficult to hear the people around me, because I found that really critical. And I just wanted to ask the students if they're finding it more difficult to hear themselves and each other, and if they have maybe little tricks to compensate. I'd imagine, since you're clearly making it work very well, I just wondered if that was different for you.
Who wants to answer that? You got, all right. This is Abe.
Hello. Yeah, so it definitely is more difficult, especially to hear each other, like you said, but I think we're all just super happy to be able to play again, and that outweighs any potential downside. And you just need to listen a little bit harder, I think.
Thanks, Abe. Yeah, it is. It's a different skill, and you just have to listen out a lot more. And you also have to acknowledge the fact, and you sort of get used to the fact that you're going to hear things differently than you're accustomed to when the jazz band is usually pretty tight, right? In tight side to side groups and tight front to back, so that they can hear each other really well. So yeah, it's tricky, but you do make adjustments and compensate for what you can't hear.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bethany?
I just wanted to thank you, Bethany Rancliffe Brattleboro. I just wanted to throw out there that thank you to the band and to Mr. Rice. I feel like it's pretty indicative and telling that we just listened to that with everybody separated and wearing masks and over a Zoom call, and it still was like super enjoyable and really well done. And I could even hear over the Zoom call, with whatever internet connections all of us have, that it was fantastic. So thanks to the kids and Mr. Rice for putting it together for us to hear. And also I wish it was in person, because just over Zoom it was pretty awesome. So thanks for that. That was really amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I was actually just reminded, Mr. Perrin obviously told me that this was all going to be on Zoom, but I was just reminded of that a few minutes ago. And I actually, we were anticipating having the school board sort of walk through our rehearsal. That would have been fun, but you're not in the building.
Yeah, we're not allowed in the building. Steve, I'm wondering if we're going to have another opportunity. Do you think you'll be able to do the Estieville concert in June?
Well, we are thinking about what we could do, and perhaps we certainly don't have enough music to make a whole concert this year. By the end of the year, we may have like 5 tunes that are suitable for public hearing. But Madrigals is the other school group that's been rehearsing throughout the course of the year. And so we may share some sort of an outdoor performance, maybe not at Estieville, but maybe outdoors here somewhere, you know, the football field, something like that. It's sometime in late spring.
That would be great. Make sure you let us know. We've got a communications council that can spread that far and wide, and it's always such a fantastic thing to hear the students playing outside. It's just such
yeah.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Can we have another piece?
Sure. Let's go ahead and do a little group pavement. This will take just a sec.
So weird.
Thank you.
Oh. I was reminded by one of my brass players, one of the things we forgot to show you is that they're not supposed to be emptying their spit valves onto the floor because it could contain virus, but they still have to empty their spit valves. And so we have absorbent pads, like puppy training pads, that they put down on the floor, and they empty onto those pads and then throw the pads away at the end of the rehearsal. Okay, we ready? Put this back up so you can see the band. Kinda. All right. Here we go. 1 and 2. Okay, so there you have it. That's where we are at right now. We're hoping a few more months and we'll sharpen things right up and maybe get a chance to play for a live audience, which would be a real treat.
Real treat for us too, Mr. Rice. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Good night.
Well, who wants to try and follow that? Robin, you have a question?
Yes, not a question exactly, but I just wanted to, I appreciate very much the music. As a musician, that makes my heart sing always to hear kids getting together and making music and doing it so beautifully. But I also wanted to go back because there wasn't a time to comment on the previous presentation about the diversity and equity work that's being done, and just really appreciate how amazing the work at all of these schools is. And I really loved hearing about that. And I just want to acknowledge the amazing work that Michaela is doing in providing this support to 10 schools, which is an immense task. And I just wanted to comment that it really deserves to have the position, the halftime position in her department that was created 2.5 years ago, filled with someone that can really partner with her in this work to continue supporting all our teachers and kids in this journey. Thanks.
Thanks, Robin. Jillian?
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I pretty much just want to echo what Robin has stated. I know at Youth for Change, we have many youth members, and I've heard from other youth in the community who have benefited greatly through the work that Michaela has done in the school district. And this other position is one that is very much needed to help support Michaela. I know that there's talk, I know the Social Justice Committee is working on efforts to increase diversity recruitment within the school district. And I just want to remind us all in this public space right now that it's not just about recruitment. You need to make sure that there are systems and structures of support in place to actually maintain having a diverse staff. And that is something that this position does in helping to support one of the few BIPOC, honestly, in this school district who is doing such important work. So I just, wanted to put that out there and echo that and say that we need more positions like this, and we need more support for our BIPOC educators. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. And it's well timed too. Thomas, we're just talking with Thomas about retention and supporting people as the next topic on the agenda for Social Justice Committee. So thank you. Ein, I'm sorry, I can't see any more on the screen to know how to say your name.
Hi, it's Ain, and
hi, thank you.
And this is Ray. Yeah, thank you. And we have students in both schools, and we haven't been. Well, 2 schools in the district, and we haven't been to one of these meetings. So thank you for this. And it was amazing to see that presentation about the work Michaela Sims is doing and leading. And we've experienced that firsthand with the kids, when the conversations they now have and the things that they're studying. And it's just been truly helpful for us as white people and also as queer people, that this work has a huge depth and breadth that affects all of us. So we just also wanted to echo what Jillian and Robin just said too, like fully resourcing this kind of work just feels so vital to us. And we're just really glad that this district prioritizes that. So we're proud to be here and be part of this and to see all the work you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's really nice to hear people appreciate the hard effort and just the whole range of things that you've seen from the high school staff and the teacher leader staff. It's astonishing the work that's being done here. Thank you. Trinity?
Hi, I'm also here just to echo my gratitude towards the diversity stuff going on, and as well just echo that Michaela provides a lot of important stuff at the school and is a really great asset. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to get through high school as easy without her assistance. And yeah, I just wanted to echo that.
Thank you. I believe we will I don't see any more questions. We will move on to, for those of you that maybe recently joined, expecting that we would be doing committee reports and leadership council reports next, we shifted the agenda at the beginning of the meeting to put the 2 action items on the Academy School ahead of those reports, so we'd have a nice unbroken amount of time to talk about the committees and leadership council. So we're going to move to the new business items A and B, and I believe that Dr. Rucker has some information to share with us, and some people to hear from, and probably some pictures to look at, and then we'll get on to a couple of motions.
Okay, well, thank you. And yes, we have Corey Fassi, we have Diane Abadi, and I think we have Nadev Malin with us this evening. We don't expect this to take a lot of time because we have reviewed the Academy project, but we, as you say, we need some action items from the board over the next few meetings. So here we go. So for tonight, we're looking for 4 motions, and I think they'll be pretty obvious as we go through the next steps. So here's our timeline that we've been following here. I've been sharing this with the board, and most recently with the Finance Committee on March 25. Here we are, April 6th. What we are looking to do is to get the design locked, so consensus from the board to move forward so that Stevens and Associates can address the final design, which gets us to a bid process. We also want to launch the selection committee for the interested bidders for this project. This is the Academy Addition renovation project. So we need some board action on that, which Corey and Nadev and Diane are going to speak to. And then we need to take action on the warning for the May 11 public vote. We also want to make sure we schedule that required public information meeting. We have it tentatively May 6th, so we wanted to talk about that. Those all come with 4 motions that we will propose for the board to consider, and that will get us on our way to what we're hoping for is selection of a contractor through a bid award, and then ultimately start a construction in late summer, early fall, with occupying these spaces, sometime in the spring of next year. So I will turn it over to, I'm not sure if it's going to be Corey or Diane. Diane, okay. I'll turn it over to Diane to sort of give us an overview of the schematic design, what the committee has been working toward, the input we've gotten from consultants, board members, from the workshops, and essentially the design concept that we're asking the board to approve tonight. So Diane, you want to take it away?
Sure, thank you, Frank. I have to say this is probably one of the most enjoyable and inspiring board meetings I have been to. So it is a tough act to follow. Can I do a screen share?
Yes, you should be able to do it.
All right, so I will, for those of you who don't know me or are not familiar with me, I'm Diane Abate, the project architect from Stevens and Associates for the Academy School renovation and addition project. I also have Corey here, who is the principal in charge and also the civil engineer, as well as Nadev Malin. I think you are here, give a wave here. From Building Green, who is helping us with the sustainability and energy goals and commitments that we've put forth. So let me start with a screen share. And again, I know this is a pretty long night and I don't want to, let's see, screen share. Nope, that's not.
We can see it. We can
Oh,
see
you
a
can?
schematic, yeah, of the wing, of all the wings of Academy, yeah, and the
Oh,
purple
okay,
edition.
great. Okay. So just a quick overview of the project. If you'll notice that the key plan to the right, which identifies the renovation for the special education resource room, over here to the left, the addition for the academic support and special education, the demolition of the temp building, and then these pink rooms with these dashed lines represent the window replacements for the 14 classrooms. So what the team has been working on for the last several weeks or months is schematic design, and we had a very productive and informative workshop on March 25th, where we went over the plan layouts, construction types, fire safety codes and what some of those impacts are to the design, the window options, and the basis of design from the mechanical engineers for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And we had a pretty good turnout with Jackie Reynolds and Sean Murphy, Frank, Kelly, Matt, as well as the full design team. I'm sorry, Thomas, you weren't able to attend. It was a tough group to try to assemble. But we do hope to see you on others. So as a result of the work that we've been doing and the research and based on professional experience and feedback from the members of the design team, we've really have narrowed down some of the things we would like to consider. And this following list are ones that we've eliminated basically for a number of reasons, but I'll go through them quickly. The SIP panels, which is a foam core panel, which is a type of building construction. Metal cladding, which is simply a type of veneer that would cover a building. Modular construction, the reuse of the temp building location, and restoring the existing glass block windows with a interior or interior storm. We've really done a lot of work and back and forth and have gotten feedback from the school and from other members of the committee. And these don't best represent what the project goals and standards are. So we would like to move to other better choices. And in order for us to stay on schedule and to meet our goals for getting the documents out to bid, schematic design really needs us to narrow down a direction in terms of what kind of a building, where are we building, what's the building composition, and there are other choices that can be made further down the road. However, these are pretty big critical decisions. And we do feel, based on the schematic design room layouts that were done with Kelly and meeting with teachers last, I think it was now a year and a half ago, that those design plans, Kelly has reviewed them again in March, and we feel very confident that those plans are still viable and we can move forward with the layouts that were presented. There are also implications in terms of the fire safety code, because we're building an addition onto an existing school. There are certain restrictions that the fire code brings about. One is the use of a firewall or a pedestrian walkway, and we went through this in a lot of detail in the workshop. But the outcome of this is that the preferred method, in order to be compliant with the fire safety code for a non-sprinkler building, is to use a firewall to make that attachment with the addition alongside the existing building. We've also are recommending the use of a stud wall construction with an insulated slab on grade using either an eco-friendly brick or other eco-friendly economical, durable, and with a low maintenance veneer. Again, these are not decisions we need right now. However, on the stud wall construction and slab on grade, that is a direction for the design that we should nail down at the end of schematic design. As far as the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing basis of design, again, the mechanical engineers presented their basis of design, which is the use of heat pumps for the addition and renovation with backup supplemental heat from the pellet boiler, and the use of HRUs or heat recovery units, which bring fresh outdoor air in and circulate. And of course, we would be using LED lighting with lighting controls. The other big piece of this project, which is the window replacement, again, we've done a lot of studies. We don't feel we are ready to make a recommendation on that yet. We have been looking at two window systems, one being a fiberglass or polymer fiberglass panel cowl wall, and another is a high performance glazing Solara. And there are cost differences, and we're trying to weigh out whether or not those really make sense for this project. Do you go with the less expensive with a slightly less performance, or do you go for the higher performance but more cost? So I think we just need to do a little more vetting of that before we make a recommendation to you on that. But primarily the real big ones for us in order to keep moving forward with the design is really locking in the room layouts for the addition, for the resource room, the use of a firewall and a stud wall construction, whether it's metal or wood. Again, that can be vetted out as the design evolves in terms of what is a better choice of material. And I think Nadev has a lot of weigh in on a lot of these things that we're looking at in terms of their sustainability and use. So last piece of this are the windows for the new addition. Again, this is not something we need to determine right now. We have a day lighting consultant who is working with us to help us optimize the shape, size, and configuration of windows, and that can be explored further as we go into early design development, which we would like to start by April 18th, which would also be the end of schematic design, and then moving us into design development. So again, I can just quickly show the overview of the project, where when I mentioned firewall, what that means, basically, there will be a wall here, which will help create a fire separation between the addition and the existing school. And this being is my audio dropping in and out, or can you hear?
You're good.
Oh, okay. And this being the renovation for the special education resource room.
So if I could
Yes.
interject, I know Diane has another segment of this overview to share, but this would be a good time for the board to consider a motion to accept the schematic design as just reviewed by Diane. And if there are questions, maybe if we could get a motion, and then with discussion we can address any questions as well.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, we can start with motion. Unfortunately, we haven't seen, these documents came late in the day. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look at them. So I would like to ask, we'll make the motion, but then I would like to ask that you go through the highlights. What the motion is going to say is we're accepting the schematic design as presented. and authorizing the design team to move ahead. And that was kind of I shouldn't say confusing, but it was a very complex presentation because you told us things you were suggesting or recommending now, and then things are going to come later. So if you could kind of focus in on to give us a strong sense of what it is that we are going to approve what you're recommending, then I'll ask the board if they understand it adequately, or if we need to wait and look at the documents and do more research, because we have to be comfortable with that we understand what we're voting on before we do it. It's not that we don't trust you, we just got the documents very late, so we just have no idea.
Sure. So the schematic design room layouts are what were presented in the feasibility study, so that those room layouts have not changed. And so the configurations are as they have been in the feasibility study. The use of a firewall, again, I could probably pull something up. I don't know if it would be appropriate.
No, don't. If you could just really summarize the highlights.
All right, so the highlights. So the highlights, what I'm really looking for is sign off on these areas. I don't know if my cursor is showing, but it's really this. So it's the schematic design layouts based on the feasibility layouts. The use of a firewall versus a pedestrian walkway. All this really is talking about is basically saying that we're going to have a firewall here. This is the preferred and best choice location for the addition, versus here, versus moving it away and using a pedestrian walkway, which would create all kinds of other design issues. And the use of a stud wall construction with insulated slab on grade is basically saying, we're moving away from using a modular construction, which would require a crawl space as well as a ramp in order to make this building work. It would end up being out here somewhere with a ramped enclosed pedestrian walkway. And there again, we went through this with our mechanical engineers. There's all kinds of issues that can arise with moisture in crawl spaces, and they've also.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I think if you could really hit the highlights. I don't think you really need to.
I can't help.
We trust the committee, and we trust.
I can't help getting into.
Yeah, I know you
the
can't.
details.
But we have a.
Yes. All right.
I trust your work, and I trust the work committee, and it's fine. We just need to know what you are asking.
It's these 5 elements that if everyone agrees that we are moving in the right direction, then this is great. Then this really informs us in terms of where we need to go to finish schematic design and move into design development to start designing the details and the construction for the building. So schematic design, we spent a lot of time looking at different options, looking at a variety of things. Those are those items that you see up here. And what we've come to the conclusion of is that these are our the best direction for the design. And
thank you. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay, and I apologize. We have a lot of business ahead, and we're really confident in the work. We just need to know what we're voting on.
I agree. It's a lot of information to try to put into a capsule. All right.
Great. So I would ask then for a motion, please, to accept the schematic design as presented and authorization for the design team to move into design development, also called final design, on the Academy addition and renovation project. Could I have a motion to that effect, please?
Yes, I would like to make that motion. It was well stated, David. And
thank you, Sean.
I think the WSESD board should move ahead with the schematic design that has been presented this evening.
Thank you. Wendy has her hand up. Uh-oh.
Well, it's not an uh-oh, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
I just want to make sure, it sounds like, and this is a little bit about the email that you sent this afternoon.
Okay.
You have this written down that you're going to send to me, the wording of the motion, right?
I think I did send the wording I just read to you.
No, actually you didn't.
Okay.
I think you forgot to make that attachment in the email, but I responded to you as such. You just didn't see it because it was right before the meeting,
Okay.
but I just want to make sure that if you have that somewhere in writing that you do send that to me.
I
please.
will as soon as yeah. And the
Great.
other two, I have the other two as well, Wendy. I'll get them both to you. Thank you.
Okay, good to know. Thanks so much.
So we have moved, I need seconded, the motion is presented.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Tim. Any discussion? Is the board comfortable with the presentation? And again, this is for the public. This is a board business. So we're going to hear from the board first, and then we have public discussion after that. Any other comments from the board? Sean?
Yeah, I would just like to say that on March 25th, we had the study committee and all the engineers present and the architects and Corey Stevens, Corey, the principal. It was extremely well thought out process. Diane made a wonderful presentation on all the things, negatives and the positives, and you know, trying to winnow down what is the best path forward. And I think it was very successful. So thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, the minutes were really thorough too. It was clear that things were very carefully considered. Mary McLaughlin. You're muted, Mary.
I've been very impressed with Academy's attempts to have great outdoor opportunities for kids. And they've done just a phenomenal job. And I just want to make sure that those same opportunities exist for kids with disabilities. So I guess what I'm wondering is there egress from the new classrooms to the outside for kids who might be in wheelchairs or not be mobile, and to make it easier for them to access the outdoors?
Kelly, would you like to respond to that? I mean, or anyone else? I suspect that was pretty important in your considerations.
Yes, yes, and I can. Definitely, we have to design so that the exits will be ADA accessible. So there will be an egress out to the playground, and it will be accessible by wheelchair or somebody impaired or
Great.
challenged.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
And also, if I can just interject, hi, Mary, thanks.
Hi.
I just wanted to also say conversely, but on the same token, it's really important to us to have those students remain closer when they're receiving services. Right now, they have to travel a distance, go outside to get to a different building. So part of this design is that it's going to be connected to the main building, which for a lot of reasons will be better, but it feels a lot more inclusive as well.
Terrific.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mary. Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to accept the schematic design as presented and authorization for the design team to move into design development, final design of the Academy addition or renovation project, all those in favor, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So next, I believe, is the bidder qualification committee. Frank, are you doing that one?
Yeah, and Diane will also give us a little bit of an overview of how Stevens and Associates can support the process. But last meeting, we did a quick overview of State Board Rule 6300, which basically says for projects estimated to cost over $500,000, the board has to go through a bidder pre-qualification process and then a bidder selection process. So it's a little different than for a smaller project. So what we're recommending is that the board form a committee, a selection committee, and that the board delegates the work to evaluate the interested construction bidders, which is called pre-qualification. Delegate that to experts, and in this case, we're recommending it would be to Stevens and Associates, to Building Green, represented by Nadev Malin. Also include at least 2 board members and a administrator, which it typically would be the business administrator. So Diane can speak, briefly again to how Stevens and Associates were to support that process. And ultimately, it's to make a recommendation back to the board for 2 things. One is to pre-qualify a group of interested bidders. And then number 2 is to recommend the selection of the bid award once the bid process is, conducted. So
Right.
Diane, you want to just speak?
Sure. Thanks, Frank. And really our role in that process is to take the lead on those communications with your potential contractors, be involved in the distribution of the AIA document and collecting the documents back, analyzing them, making the phone calls, checking out references, really doing the analysis and making sure that any contractor who is providing or putting in a qualification statement is qualified to bid. So at the end of that process, we would come to you with a list of contractors who meet those qualifications. And again, my request while we're doing this, of course, is to be as transparent and in keeping the board informed, so that if you form this committee, we can talk about who might that point person be that I would be CCing on emails, for example, so that you're always kept in the loop of the process. But ultimately, that responsibility of sort of vetting out those contractors, we would take on. We do this quite often, and we know a lot of the contractors and know the questions to ask and how to look at the information they've provided. And I think we're also going to make sure that in the language of the pre-qualification, that we want to make sure that we are getting contractors who have proven track records on doing sustainable buildings or airtight buildings, and we will make the phone calls and check references. So that's the pre-qualification process. And the same with the public bid process. Again, we are, yes, we're going to be there every step of the way, going through the entire process, making the appointments for site visits and pre-construction meetings with contractors, and again, soliciting the bids, participating or conducting the open bid, however you wish to do that. We do this quite often. We're doing them with Zoom now, and making a recommendation after analyzing the bids to select the lowest responsible bidder. And again, we would expect there would be participation and with the committee. So we are doing this together, but we're all in.
That's good.
Sure. We're all in, don't worry.
And then if I could just tie this to the State Board Rule 6300, it's very prescriptive. There are steps to take, so we would make sure those steps are complied with, and the recommendation comes back to the board to make the decision on who's going to bid, and then who gets the bid once the bids are received. So that's with our expert partners' insight. So that would be the second motion that we're asking for is, David, I think you have the
Yes.
motion.
Yes,
Okay.
I do. Just one question. Do we need to identify people this evening to be on these, to be the board reps on the committee, or do we just want the motion to create it and then we'll give people time to think about it and ask for members later?
Well, the reason why it would be helpful if folks know that they want to participate, and 3 or 4 of the members that we're referring to, Stevens Associates, Nadav, which is Building Green, and myself, which are proposed members, are ready to sign up. And then I was kind of making the assumption that folks, the board members that participated in the workshops might be interested in, but that was an assumption. David, to answer your question, the advantage of making that decision tonight would enable us to have actually the qualification criteria all identified and ready for the board to consider at your next meeting, so that we could start the advertising process and actually move forward, as opposed to take another meeting, to figure that out. So that would be the benefit if we could assign the members.
Let me read the motion so people have a sign, and then we'll see if Thomas and Jackie are willing to continue in that role. And if they are, then we're all set. And if not, we can get other volunteers. So the motion I'm going to ask for is a motion to comply with the State Board of Education's Rule 6300 series for the WSESD board to form a construction bidder pre-qualification selection committee to make a recommendation to the board for selection of bidders to participate in the Academy School Addition renovation project pre-qualification process. And after bids are received, to recommend selection of the successful bidder. So the motion doesn't include those names, so I'm not sure what steps we would need to take in order to.
I had a third motion, David. I don't know if you noticed it, but
yes, okay.
Yeah, okay, just to simplify the action. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do the second motion then. The third motion says what Frank said previously: the pre-qualification and bid selection committee consists of representatives from Stevens and Associates, Building Green, and at least 2 WSESD board members and the business administrator. So we could identify the 2 board members specifically in the motion, and we would be 100% complete. So first, let's see the second motion of the evening to comply with the State Board of Education's rule series that the WSESD form a construction bidder pre-qualification selection committee received to recommend selection of the bidder. So have I confused things enough or too much for the board to be able to present someone to make that motion and second it so that we can have a vote? Or do we need more information?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Who was the second?
Liz.
Oh, thank you, Liz. So moved by Ann Beekman, Liz, seconded by Liz to form the, let me see again here as I move things around, construction bidder pre-qualification selection committee, and after bids are received, a selection of the successful bidder. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, indicate, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. And now the third one is the motion that the pre-qualification and bid selection committee consists of representatives from Stevens and Associates, Building Green, and 2 WSESD board members and the business administrator. Jackie and Thomas, are you willing to continue in that capacity?
That's fine.
I am.
Great. Okay. So when I send this to Wendy, she will include the representatives from Stevens and Associates, Building Green, Jackie Reynolds and Thomas Nolan, and the business administrator. So could I have a motion to that effect, please?
So made.
Thomas, moved by Thomas and second.
Seconded.
Thank you, Tim. Moved by Thomas and seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. Great. Now, Frank, you had one more.
It's basically to approve the warning.
Yeah, that's the next topic. Okay.
Yep. And also to agree on the May 6th public information date. It is a Thursday.
Okay. Let's see. So we finished with new business A, the action on the Academy project design. So now we're on new business B, warning article for May 11th, 2021 Academy project financing. Is that correct?
Right.
And do you have the financing motion? You can share.
So we have the warning. That's what we're
Yes.
looking to approve. So I can share that.
That's not with the agenda, so it would be great if you could.
Okay. The warning is on the agenda from last meeting. We have it as an item in the on the website. So this is the same document I shared last meeting. And Barb has confirmed with all of our town clerks that these locations are officially, agreed to. So she worked particularly with the Brattleboro town clerk to make sure that this location for Brattleboro was going to work for all parties, given the COVID issues. So it's a way to keep our public officials safe during the ballot process. So this is at the Career Center at the high school for Brattleboro Town in terms of a polling location. And then the Dummerston Town Office, the Guilford Town Office, and Putney Town Office between 10 and 7.
Frank, it's the Putney Fire Station.
Is that what it says here? This says Putney.
That's the one you put up on the website late this afternoon, said Putney Fire Station, and that's where they normally hold them.
Oh, okay.
There's no room at the town office to do it.
Okay. I believe this is what Barb has posted, and that's where I got this. That's an important detail. We certainly can approve the warning and confirm that that is what was intended. But here's where I got this from, and it was from Barb just this afternoon. So for now, here's where it is. The warning. So I'm just pulling what I thought I had pulled up earlier.
Frank, can I just jump in here for a second?
Yeah.
There is a warning that is on the current agenda that does say the Putney Fire Station.
Yeah,
so that must be an updated one.
That's what I just pulled up. So this must have been updated. So thank you, Liz, for that. And here is what is currently on the website. So let's just confirm. Yes, this is the Career Center. This is that what used to be the Brattleboro Savings and Loan office that's right on the Career Center campus at BUHS. And there we are with Dummerston, Guilford Town offices, and as you said, Liz, Putney Fire Station. And there's the article I requested from Paul Giuliani. He's served Vermont for 30 plus years as legal counsel for districts related specifically to debt and to capital improvement project warning. So that's all from Paul Giuliani, and that's the warning. The draft is basically identical with the update at the location. So this has been on our website as a sample for the last month, and here we are with the final form.
So just to be clear, what we're asking for approval is to ask the legal voters of the school district to authorize us to borrow up to $2 million if we choose to borrow for this project. It doesn't, we're not asking for 2,000, or we're not asking to borrow the $2 million. We're asking for authority to borrow up to that if we need it for this project. So is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And I do expect I'm being very assertive in applying for the federal grants to support this project. It's very much consistent with much of the criteria in supporting our students. It will address indoor air quality. It will improve the learning environments, and that is very much consistent with the federal grants that have recently been awarded. And I will also be working with Efficiency Vermont as I have in the past, and they've been a good funding partner. So I do expect it will be less than 2 million that we would need to borrow.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the warning article for May 11th, 2021 Academy project financing. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Liz. And second?
Seconded.
I think I heard Ann. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the warning as presented, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the ayes have it. So we've got those things done.
Very good. And then May 6th, May 11th is Tuesday. May 6th is a Thursday. The state law requires a public information meeting within 10 days of the vote. So we were proposing May 6th as the public information meeting, and I would assume it would be the Zoom format as we've been doing through the past many months. So I think Barb needs to know that is the board's intention, so that she can include that in the postcard mailing that we put out to all residents. So if there's a
great. So well, we don't all have to be there. I don't even know that we necessarily need a quorum for that. So I don't know that we need to have. I think we can definitely set that date without, even though there may be some people who can't attend. Is there any? Well, let's have the motion first. A motion to schedule a public information meeting on May 6th via Zoom.
So moved, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. Thanks, Ann. So moved and seconded to set May 6th as a date for the public information meeting. Is there any discussion? Michelle?
I'll just comment that I know that that's the Dummerston Leadership Council meets the first Thursday of the month.
Thank you. Other comments? Jody?
If I can just remind.
Go ahead, Tim.
Sorry, just remind everybody about Barb's email that we need 6 board members to sign off on the warning.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah,
By
we
tomorrow.
need to go by central office tomorrow morning. It'll be on the porch to be signed. Thank you.
So I'll do that, and so 5 others should.
Great. Thank you. Jody?
Just a question I probably have missed along the line. I thought that Brattleboro had a capital plan that included this with quite some funds in it. So is the cost of this construction using that capital plan as well as a bond, or am I mistaken?
Well, I think there were a couple of years of I don't know that we had any. No, we didn't have anything set aside for this project as the Brattleboro Town School Board. So when the undesignated and the capital reserve funds were put into the district, into the merged district, they became available, and this became part of the WSESD capital plan. And the question about whether we use any of those reserve funds is that remains to be asked, and it's a good question, because we already have, even though we're going to be done with the high school bond, if we add another $300,000 for the next 5 years, that's going to be that, and the reserve funds we've been using are going to put us in kind of a hole. So we may want to use some of that capital money. But this motion, or this authorization, is simply to borrow if we need it. But the way we're going to pay for it, and Frank just mentioned various grants, and we may be able to get really close with the 2 years of funds that have been set aside in the capital plan, and some grants, and we may get really close enough to not have to borrow, to take a little bit out of. We could ask the voters to approve using some of the undesignated reserves and do it all with cash. But that all remains to be determined after we see the bids and we see what's available through grants and from federal support. So did that answer your question, Jody?
Yeah, that answers my question. I just had remembered Brattleboro did have, and I remember watching Brattleboro meetings, and you had the capital reserves for certain things. So I've just brought the question to my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thanks. So I think now, Frank, do you want to do the boiler update? We'll get you done here tonight.
Oh, very good. Yes, so I was very pleased to be informed that Windham Wood Heat, which is it's a organization accepting funds from the Clean Energy Development Fund from the state of Vermont. I had worked with these folks for several biofuel projects two years ago, and the program ended in December of 2020. But just recently, this Windham Wood Heat group reached out and indicated that across the state, the municipal entities could apply for funding for biofuel improvements. And as you know, we've spoken about this before in our capital planning. Dummerston was on schedule for a main primary boiler, oil boiler replacement in 2024. That's in our fiscal year 5-year capital plan. So I'm recommending that we advance that timeline to this fiscal year 21, primarily because this grant, which I applied for and has, as you see here, has been awarded $53,000. So that's a substantial percentage of the estimated cost. would be available to us if we pursue the project. But the project, as you can see right here, would need to be installed by the end of this year, December 2021. I've gone through these projects now with the Guilford School, the Green Street School, Academy School, Putney Central School, and I'm confident that we can turn this around, even though it's a short timeline. I would also be pursuing assistance with Efficiency Vermont, which I do think would be fairly substantial. So roughly speaking, I think this is a $300,000 project. And if we receive this 53 along with maybe a similar amount, it's hard to tell, from Efficiency Vermont, along with we do have this in the capital plan, so it would be part of those reserves that we have set aside. I do not see a need to borrow for this project. It is a matter of a planned capital improvement, and I'm just recommending that we move forward with this, a couple of fiscal years ahead. From an energy efficiency point of view, I think we will improve our payback and capture a savings, an operating savings earlier than we would. So there's a benefit from that point of view. Also, obviously, it's in line with the board's goals around in sustainable investment, climate related improvements, this will remove the primary fuel source as a fossil fuel. It will be a renewable fuel. I'm really pleased to see the support from this Windham Wood Heat group. And, it was a competitive grant. And so I'm pleased that they've given us this. They do have quite a criteria for us to meet, which I'm confident, again, we can meet those requirements. So this would be another request for the board to accept this funding and to authorize me to move forward with the Dummerston biofuel boiler replacement project.
Thank you. Wendy, I see you had your hand up just as Frank was starting.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of embarrassed, and I can only blame COVID brain Zoom fog. On the last motion to schedule the public information meeting, was the vote cast? I'm so sorry.
Geez, I sure hope so, although I can't promise you that it was.
I don't remember it, in all honesty.
Does anybody remember?
This is terrible.
No, we didn't vote, David.
Thank you.
We didn't vote.
Okay, so I'm not losing. Well, okay, I might still be losing my mind, but this is not an indication of such. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Wendy. We'll go back and take that vote after we finish this one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Jody?
Yeah, this is a pretty enticing offer and everything. However, I do have a lot of questions. And I will ask the questions and you may be able to answer them for me. I want to know exactly what research has been done or is going to be done on this biofuel or the wood, it's wood chips or wood, whatever. I'm also concerned with the fact of the air quality, and has any testing been done on these schools in near Green Street or the other Guilford, I guess, testing of the air when these burners are working, and supposedly there's a lot of very small particulates that are spewed out of this. I'm all in favor of renewable. I'm not exactly convinced that this is renewable after all the reading that I have been doing. And so these are my questions before we go ahead and put another one of these boilers in. So if somebody could answer them for me, that would be great. Thank you very much.
I can address some of that. And I don't know if Nadev is still with us, and if he has an opinion on that or not. But there has been extensive research on this project. Here's one of the origins of this proposal. So this is a proposal that was done in 2015. And we just didn't have funding available at that time, but the recommendation was to move forward with a pellet system, not only because it is actually a lower emission in terms of oil emissions versus wood. The oil emissions have a lot of sulfur and benzene in them, whereas the wood is mostly water vapor is what you see coming out of the stack. But with all wood decomposition, when a tree hits the ground in the forest, there is a release of some CO2. So there is some CO2 that is part of the combustion process. But there is a particulate collector on these systems, and so that you do not see ash on the cars in the parking lot, or a degradation of the air quality. Most of Vermont schools now have gone to biofuel. I was actually part of one of the first systems in Vermont back in 1992, and since then there are hundreds of installations of the pellet and wood chip systems throughout Vermont, in villages and in populated areas. And as they say, the emissions are better than the fossil fuel emission. So there's, glad to have you review this study, Jody, and scientists and engineers that I've worked with over the years could probably speak more specifically, technically, to some of the the questions you might have. As I'm just scrolling through here.
Thomas and then Tim.
I lowered my hand just because I have received a couple questions from people in Dummerston about this, about the impact on the air quality and sustainability. And I just didn't know, Frank kind of touched on a lot of points that kind of answered my questions. This is a concern for people in Dummerston. I try to let people know that I choose to heat my house this way. It's a good reminder that there is no such thing as a carbon-free or like a way of heating or energy without some cost. There is some environmental cost regardless. I consider this a much better on a bunch of different metrics than oil. But it is a concern for people in Dummerston.
Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, there's not really a good way to heat a house, but wood is the least bad.
Another point that often is made is when we compare a commercial system for a school to a home system. Typically, they're quite different in terms of the efficiency of the system, because the commercial system sustains a much higher temperature for burning the fuel, and that is what combusts so much of the gases that come out of a combustion process, and that is why it's a far cleaner and far less sort of a impact on air quality than a home system. The wood chip systems sustain a internal combustion temperature of about 2,000 degrees, and that actually gasifies the fuel as opposed to burns it. It is a different process. The induction fans, help make that tremendous efficiency that we get, and that's why it's been so successful. As you know, it's also obviously a local resource. as opposed to a, an oil extraction resource.
Thank you, Frank. Tim and then Jody.
Some time ago, Jody shared with me a document, an article about the source of pellet stoves. It was well, the largest company in the world that produces pellets I forget if it's from South Carolina or Georgia, but they're engaging in clear cutting, which is just devastating to the environment. So I don't know what the alternatives are, but I would be very much in favor of spending a little more for an environmentally responsible source of the pellets.
Yeah, and the pellet suppliers are from the local region. There's a Northern Forest consulting group that is very concerned and very interested in sustainable foresting practices, and our suppliers are from the local area, and they work together with that forest management. So these pellets are not coming from a great distance. These are managed New England sources.
Good to know, Frank. Thanks.
Thank you. Jody and then Sean.
I just wondered, my other question was, has anybody done any air testing around these that have been burning in our area? And I haven't heard that answered yet. Thank you.
Yes, as part of these projects, if we went back to that document, there are specific requirements for air quality, CO2 sensing, and so on in schools. It's absolutely required. They won't give you the money if you don't have the project commissioned and tested. So all of our projects that we have completed have those tests been done. The commissioning has been done, and they've met the requirements of both the state of Vermont, but also the biofuel folks that are trying to promote a sustainable source of heat.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I would just make a motion, if I could, that the WSESD board pursue the idea of a biofuel boiler in the school in Dummerston, and accept whatever grants and other funds that are available.
I second that.
Yeah. Nice comprehensive motion. Thank you. Included the grants as well. That's moved and seconded. I think you're going to have to say it again for Wendy, though, because this week we tried to have all the motions prepared ahead of time, but we didn't get to this one.
Yes, please.
So Sean, could you sort of succinctly repeat what you said?
Can try. I would move that the WSESD board pursue continuation of the pursuant of the Dummerston biofuel boiler upgrade and accept grants as they become available for such a process or something like that. I said it better the first time. That's always the way it is.
Yep.
Good enough for me. Thanks, Sean.
All right. Thank
And
you.
Michelle, is that what you agreed to second? Great. Okay. So we have a motion to continue the process of developing the biofuel boiler upgrade project for Dummerston School and to accept grants as awarded. So any discussion? Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't remember exactly, but I know that Dummerston had like the highest or second highest heating bill in the entire school district. And so I imagine that the savings in getting this going is really a gift and will benefit us right away. And this is fabulous.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I would just like to say that, I think Jody's right, that we should be very careful with doing things like this. But I also agree with what Thomas brought up, that if you went to fossil fuels and you followed from cradle to grave, the fossil fuel development, it's kind of horrific. So, is it perfect? No. But is it better than what we do now? Yes, is in my opinion. Thank you.
Well, just to pile on, the state has done the forestry department has done a really pretty comprehensive study of the state, and we have more than enough wood product in this region to supply the needs for pellets or chips for as long as we would need them. So it also helps the local economy. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to continue the process of developing the biofuel boiler upgrade project at Dummerston, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and the motion is approved. Okay. We also, under new business, have two policies. I hope people have seen them. They came, they've been up for a while. The personnel recruitment one includes a change in Wendy, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friendly reminder that you need to conduct the vote on the public information meeting.
Yes, yeah. Let me go back to the, thank you, Wendy. We'll go back to that. We had a motion and a moved and seconded motion to establish the public information meeting for the Academy project financing warning article on May 6th, Thursday, May 6th. It was moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that? It's also in conflict with the Dummerston Leadership Council. Any other any concept? Seeing none, all those, Michelle, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, do we ever have meetings at 7 for something like that? It might actually be easier for some people too, when these meetings aren't like 4 hours long. Do it a little bit later so that Dummerston isn't split. So that's something that can be decided later.
Frank, is there any reason not to do it at 7?
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that. 7 o'clock.
That would be great. Yeah, that would be great. So, so public information, May 6th at 7 p.m. So is that okay? Wendy, who made the motion?
Let's see. Jackie made the motion and seconded it. And in the original motion, the time of the meeting was not mentioned.
So are Jackie and Ann okay with us adding the 7 p.m. time to the motion?
Yes.
I am.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, getting us out of another trouble. So seeing no further comments, all those in favor, please unmute and indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the ayes have it, and we've finally voted on that motion. Okay, so we have two policies. D1 recruitment includes language around, let me see if I can find it. Okay. I believe this is it. So are you seeing a personnel recruitment, selection, appointment, background checks policy?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, not much has changed until you get down here where we included language that the Social Justice Committee recommended a while ago, and then the Policy Committee took up and decided to turn into policy, and then Andy identified the best place to put it, which is right here in the recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks part of the recruitment policy. And what it basically says is for any information materials provided by the district will begin with the following statement. The Windham Southeast School District, WSESD, is an increasingly diverse community with an ongoing commitment to social justice and anti-racism. And further, that all recruitment materials to identify candidates for employment will include, and also a link to the anti-racist commitment, which is now available, which I've announced a few times tonight. And all recruitment materials will have the same statement and additionally another sentence that the district is an increasingly diverse community with an ongoing commitment to social justice and anti-racism. We're looking for enthusiastic professionals to join us in furthering this work. And implementation will take place immediately upon adoption. And actually, I think Andy has already implemented it in a number of cases. And then there's some language around the electronic process that basically says we'll do Facebook checks. And anything else you want to say about this? You know more about this part than I do.
This is actually a bit of housekeeping from something that we went over, more than a year ago.
Yeah.
It was based on the idea that background checks don't always catch what we should need to know. So a simple Google should be added to our official background checks.
And I think then again, some housekeeping. So that's one. And that's D1. And then E14 is an effort to combine the work of the Climate Emergency Committee and the and some audits, or not audits, what's the word? Amendments that Sean made in the policy committee, and then further amendments that Ann made, and came up with this information, with this draft. And again, I encourage people to read through it carefully. It basically covers the same areas that the Climate Emergency Committee came up with, and changes the language around to take into account some of the comments and the clarifications that people had. And so I'm not going to take the time to read through the whole thing. If you all can, it's posted and you can all have a look at it, and we will bring them up for a vote at our next meeting. Any questions? Oh, wait, let me get rid of my screen so I can see them. Oh, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the committee reports. Let me just clean things up here on my desktop. So a couple of questions for us to discuss, and they don't necessarily.
Hey, David.
Yes, Gary.
Sorry, I am having Tim's problem of not being able to find how to raise my hand anymore.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
I'm glad I'm not alone. Just quick thing on the first issue. The SU is reorganizing next Wednesday night. And I'm thinking that the SU should follow what the SD is doing, given that both the SD and Vernon have signed the ongoing commitment for social justice and anti-racism. So I want to just piggyback on the work of Ann Beekman and her committee, and we work in tandem. So whatever you guys do as far as a first reading, the SU does. So just to give everybody a heads up, I think that's where we'll follow, if that is what people are okay with.
Great. And Ann is on that board as well, so you'll be well prepared to take it up.
Okay, and now I'm going to go try to figure out how I raise my hand.
You looked in reactions?
I did. I swear I did.
And there's a whole bunch of icons, and then there's
I think I saw. Well, I see the raise hand now. Okay, I was looking at the hearts and the thumbs up, and I need my kids here, and they're not here.
Well, I'm glad we could solve that.
Thanks, David.
Okay, so the leadership councils. Oh, I put that away. Now I have to find it again. Excuse me. Okay, so the Leadership Council policy talks about membership and that the, let's see, community members, that members serve for 1 year. So we need to not necessarily reconfigure them, but we need to I'm not sure, well, I'm not sure what we need to do, but do we need to, because the because the board, the council members are appointed by the board and the council, the terms are for 1 year, we need to have a new list of the board, of the members of leadership councils. And we also need to be aware that at least 50% of the membership of leadership council needs to be community members. So I talked with Andy a little bit, and he is going to confer with the principals and get leadership council meetings scheduled in the next month or so. And I think by the second meeting in May, have those member names on lists that we can sort of approve by acclamation all together. So I think that's, unless people have a better idea or another idea or an improvement on that, that's how we'll go forward with meeting this policy requirement. And the other thing I wanted to just ask people to think about and talk about was whether we wanted to, board leaders, board members wanted to change and be in councils that were, for the elementary schools, the people who sit on the leadership councils are residents of the towns that they're sitting on, of the school districts. And because we are a board of all the towns and all the students, I'm just wondering if it might not be a good idea to shift and move some of the small school people into the Brattleboro schools and the Brattleboro people into the surrounding schools. There are lots of advantages to all of those. So anyway, I just wanted to put that idea out there and see what people's thoughts were. And we never had a policy or any real guideline on this. It came up, we talked about it a few times, but we never really had a solid guideline. So I just wanted to hear from people and see if we needed to, what we needed to think about, or if we needed to do anything differently, or if we just go on ahead. So I see Michelle, and then Tim, and then Sean, and then Jackie.
Yeah, so I raised my hand first when we were talking about this list of members. And I know I know this came up in Dummerston. Not all of the committees started at the same year mark. And so I'm wondering if we need to clarify if that needs to be, if we should like get all on the same page and just do it so that it's a year from that point on, or yeah, okay, because then we should make sure we're communicating that with the leadership councils.
Yeah. Well, I think it would just be too much to ask the administrators to figure out how long these members have been on and put all that together. I mean,
I don't disagree. I was just pointing out, I know. And as for the point that you just made, something that the Communication Council has talked about is recommending that board members think about rotating through going to their own leadership councils, but then rotating once a month, and just going to visit each of the schools. We have our, well, we're not sure if it's up and running. I think it's supposed to be our email sign up list, but I personally signed up for all of the leadership councils so that I'd get the agenda notification and so that I can go when I can, but at least make sure that I visit every school over that course of the year, or maybe even go to more meetings than that. So it's, on the same page. I know I like working at my home-based school, especially as a parent. I have kids there. I've joined because I'm part of that. It's put me in a position where I join subcommittees and do other things. But I also want to be more familiar with, the vibe of all the other schools too. So I do think we should be visiting other leadership councils and being a face at their meetings too.
Thank you. Tim?
I've loved being part of the Oak Grove Leadership Council. So when this idea was first presented, I thought, oh no, just when I've gotten to know such a great school and the people involved in it. But then the more I think about it, and the more I thought about our role on the board, yeah, it's our responsibility to really serve the entire merged district. I think it would be better for leadership councils and better for board members to rotate yearly. And as much as I would hate to leave Oak Grove, I would be in favor of moving to another school.
Thank you, Tim. Sean, and then Jackie, and then Liz.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking back when the leadership councils were established, and you know, we were supposed to be rotating. But then as it fell down, you know, people sort of were assigned to specific leadership councils. And coupling with that is we were originally going to be rotating the actual board meetings among the various schools, which would give all the board members, you know, a real flavor of each school, which we did for a while. But I would have to say that I'm very comfortable in the town of Guilford going to the Guilford Leadership Council, because it really does give me, you know, a really nice connection to the elementary school in my town, which I think also has quite a bit of validity. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jackie and then Kelly, and Liz was in there someplace, but I don't see you now.
Thanks, David. Yeah, over the course of this past year, I've felt like I've established a really good rapport with the Green Street School Leadership Council. And, you know, we've established a certain amount of trust that maybe we didn't have in the beginning, and have made a lot of progress in that area. So for that reason, I would really like to stick with them. But I really do agree with Michelle. I know it's been really great seeing Liz pop in and out of different leadership council meetings, and it's been very appreciated. I think I too should find the time to do that, to get the flavor of the other schools. There would be a lot of value in that, but I personally would definitely request to stay with Green Street. Thanks.
Great. Liz?
Yeah, I think we all should probably think about this some more, but and I agree with both sides. There is the benefit to getting to know a school outside of your town. I've been to most of the Guilford ones and have gotten a really good sense of that school. And I was sick for quite a while, but so I missed a bunch of leadership councils. But maybe we should be. It's just something to think about. People might think about going to 2 leadership councils a month, so that they are like, they could stay with their present school, but then they would sign up for a different school, not just rotate quickly through them, because when you try to rotate quickly through them, you do not get a sense of the school at all. But board members should know, you know, what's going on at a school outside of their town. So I think that maybe people should think about it and not come to a conclusion tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I see Kelly, and then there are a couple of, Michelle again, and a couple of members of the public would want to speak. So I'm going to ask people to, it's getting late and we do still have quite a bit to do. So be somewhat brief if possible. Kelly, and then Michelle, and then Jillian.
So I am in agreement with a lot of pieces that people are saying. So Michelle saying getting information from the other leadership councils. I would really like it if the agendas for each of the leadership councils was sent to the whole board, because if I had the opportunity, I mean, I do have a job outside of this, so I have to kind of, if it was, I know that there are some leadership councils that happen during the day or in the afternoons, and I may not be available for them. So if I was able to, it would be great that I could attend them. But I know that sometimes they're on schedules that may not, I may not be able to be there. But I think it would be helpful, regardless of however this goes. I think it would be helpful for everyone to have an idea of what each of the leadership councils is doing, because that might be helpful when they're going to the leadership councils that they are participating in, and they might have an idea of, you know, what the other schools are doing. I'm on the BUHS Leadership Council, and I will do whatever it is that is the will of the board. I would prefer to stay mainly on that, and I would be willing to participate in some of the others as I'm able to. But I think that it's helpful. The BUHS board is dealing with some issues and trying to plan things, and so I think for the issue, the consistency purposes, I think sometimes it's helpful to have someone stay on board on that leadership council. But I would like to be able to try to participate in some of the other ones if and when I'm available. And I think having the agendas sent to everybody would be.
I'm gonna, Michelle, I think you're probably gonna mention about how to get the agendas, so I'll go ahead.
I could. I
Yeah,
had
please
sent a
do,
link.
because we really have, you put a structure in place to make that work, so.
Yeah, and I sent a link to the board. It's okay if you missed it. It was like an 11 o'clock thing, I think, after one of our last meetings. And just to sign, I can send it again, it's just to sign up. And that was going to actually be going back to the schools, not through central office. And that's where I'm not sure if everything's completely put together. I like Liz's idea. I think that was really clever, because another idea we've talked about is having, if a board member can't be at a meeting, to have a backup, to have someone replace you, because that there is a presence. And it is true. You really do need, if you really want to know a school, you have to be there. Of course, we all have 1, 2, 3 year terms. But the only other thing is, in the spirit of, the board really considering how we want to work with the leadership councils and vice versa. This is something we should be talking to them about and seeing what, getting their feedback on, working with one consistent member, because there is a lot of planning and projects that go on in the school. But I just think this is a good opportunity. I know Dummerston is actively discussing, their relationship with the board and vice versa. And I think there's a lot of interest right now after this last vote. So I just think we should take our time with this, but I think this is just a great example and opportunity to be communicating and getting their feedback on what they think is best to work with the board, if they want to stick it with one person or see a rotation or whatever.
Thank you. Jillian and then Ruby.
Apologies, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was just commenting on the part that you mentioned earlier on who is on these leadership councils and the determinations for that, or the parameters for that. I wanted to suggest that you keep it to the definition of community members a bit more broad than simply those who reside within the town. There are quite a few people, I believe, who are important parts of the community and members of the community who don't live specifically within a specific town. However, they may work there, or they just may have been lifelong members and recently moved due to whatever circumstances. So really, that was my main point. I think that if you limit it to those who are solely residents, then you are going to potentially exclude a lot of really important and valuable members of the community. Thank you.
There's not really a clear, it doesn't say members of the town, it just says school community. So I think it can be broadly interpreted, but yeah, great, thank you. Ruby.
Hi, I think my camera's not working. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Hi, Ruby McAdoo. I'm the chair of the PCS Leadership Council. I had 2 comments, and one was, I think it may be that this is what you're talking about anyway, but I'd like to encourage the board to consider when you're thinking about the timing of starting, when does the year start for everyone, or however you arrange it, consider appointing your leadership councils at the end of the academic year. So sometime in the spring, that would carry over into the next year, because I feel like that would capitalize on any momentum that exists in the school year. The summer can be a deadening time in terms of community engagement. So I just wanted to throw that out there as something to consider. And the second point is that my experience as the chair of the PCS Leadership Council is that we've been really fortunate to have
two of school board members, both Liz and Ann, both attend almost every meeting. And Liz has been mentioned, she goes to a lot of other leadership council meetings. And I think that that's brought a lot of benefit to Putney, because when we are talking about something and she has some insight into what Guilford's doing or Dummerston or wherever, she brings it up and she's been able to make connections. And so I think that it is really important in whatever way you do it for this board to have some cross-pollination between the leadership councils in order to help those leadership councils become more grounded and more productive.
Thanks, Ruby. The that's part of the plan for why we're doing this right now, is for the administrators to convene a meeting and put together the councils and get the names to the board, and also to elect a chair so the chairs can get together and and start to share some of the questions actually that you sent around about what works, what doesn't work, how are they recruiting people, all of those kinds of things. So that's exactly what the intention is here. And at the end of the year, so it does carry over into the next year. Thank you. Okay. So I believe that gets us to the committees and reconfiguration of committee memberships. And I wanted to put that on there just in case anyone really hated their committee, or any committees really needed more people, or both, or none of the above, and just see where we were as we just did with leadership councils, what's valuable and what do we want to continue. And when you put a structure in place, it's a good idea to stop and have a look back at it and see how well it's working. So I just wanted to kind of have everybody check in around how the committees are going, and if there are any committees, in a few minutes we'll see if there are any committee reports that people want to share. But how are the committees going? Tim?
I haven't raised my hand. There.
Oh, you unmuted and I forgot, but now you have. So you want to go ahead or shall I go to Jeff?
No. Michelle and I have talked, and I'm very happy to say that I'll be joining the communications committee.
Right.
I'll just be adding that to climate task force and policy and programmatic equity. But Michelle, I look forward to working with you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Jackie?
Thanks, David. I feel that all the committees I've been on have gone very well, but I feel very certain, and I'm sure it's COVID related, but many other personal things, that this time last year, I overextended myself and became really overwhelmed and wasn't a fully contributing member to really any of the committees I was a part of. So I'm wondering if this is the time that we actually select the committees we do want to join, because I do need to scale it back so that I can contribute appropriately and not be so overwhelmed this year.
I think I hadn't thought about, I don't know, any other ideas? I think if someone wants to leave a committee or join a committee, I think they just can, I think we can just do that. We don't really have a structure. People just signed up and did things. So I think other than sort of letting me know so I can make sure it's accurate on the website and checking with the chair of the committee, I don't know if we need to, well, what do people think? Do we want to go over the lists and change things now? Michelle?
I was going to join a couple more committees. I thought it was going to look like what we did last spring, or I can just add my name to a list. But I was thinking that that's kind of what we were doing when I saw the word reconfiguration. But
well, I think the only limit is if there are more than 5 people, you've got a quorum of the board. So that's the only limit, really. There can only be 5 board members on a committee.
Right.
So just check with the chair. Liz?
I communicated with the Secretary of State about whether we'd be able to continue meeting via Zoom. after we're no longer in the COVID emergency window. And they said the legislature needs to act to if they want to continue to allow us to meet, because Zoom makes it really easy to go to things where if you have to drive all over creation, that can be a problem. And also the other thing is that the board meetings have had so many more people come since we had meetings on Zoom, that I think that's really a helpful thing. So maybe we should just email you, but with the caveat of maybe I can't do this if I have to drive here and I can't get to there, kind of deal.
That's going to be interesting to see what the legislature decides, if they keep this, keep the current rules or what. Other thoughts? Yeah, Michelle?
I have already talked to Sean, so I'll just officially say that I'm going to join the finance committee, since
Great.
he's at least someone I've already spoken to.
Great. If you could remind me, because I'm not writing things down right now, so I can tell Barb. Great, thank you. And anyone else, if you shift committees, let me know, or the chair can let Barb, just so Barb gets it right on the website.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Wendy.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm also recording it in the minutes.
Oh, great. So then there was a request or a question about whether we should record committee and leadership council meetings, basically all of our meetings. And those files would then have to, whoever was hosting would have to convert that file in their computer and then send it to the central office, or we could ask the administration to put together some, if there is some Zoom method where all the meetings would be hosted by the district, and then the chair would be given the hosting permission, and it would all be recorded automatically. Anyway, it's not a problem for us to solve. It's a question of whether we think that it's important to do that. The statute says that the meetings of the legislative bodies have to be recorded, which means our meetings and select board meetings have to be recorded. Committee meetings don't have to, but so that's just a question that came up, and I wanted to get the board's, get a response from the board on that. Tim?
I really would like to just keep things a little simpler and not record committee meetings. We report to the board on salient decisions from the committees. I think that would be sufficient.
Liz?
I guess it would depend on, David, if we continue on Zoom, because otherwise you'd have BCTV with a charge from them to record meetings. Although on the flip side, it's nice to be able to, if you can't get to something, to be able to see what actually went on at the meeting, whether it's a leadership council or a board committee. So something for people to think.
Yeah, I don't think we would hire BCTV to record all those meetings, because they also edit them and caption them and do a lot of other work. No, we'd have to figure out an internal way. And I see Andy has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the capacity of our website to host an extensive amount of video feed and video content. We might be running up into some barriers with that. Nor am I sure what the cost of the Zoom license will be after July 1 for hosting a meeting in excess of 100 people. And that's an account we had to have this year with the number of meetings. We can look into that, and we can see. I would just, encourage, just sometimes less is more in terms of what's recorded and what's kept, because it does run into a cataloging issue of who manages that and maintains those systems.
Any other comments? Sean?
Yeah, I would just say, when the finance committee started meeting, and Frank used to take the minutes, but now we have Wendy taking the minutes, which is a tremendous asset for the finance committee. So, because Wendy's as good as a recording in terms of what she captures in the meeting. So, you know, that's a really positive thing in my mind for the finance committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Well, I don't see a huge upswelling of support for recording committee and leadership council meetings, so we'll just leave that for now and see if it comes around again, or if it becomes clear that it would be valuable to do it. So are there any committee reports or updates that people would like to share? We've been out for a month since we've had one of these, since we've gone through the committees. I know all the minutes are posted with the agendas and the warning. So I've been kind of keeping up with what's happening in the committees, but I don't see any. Oh, there's Michelle and then Steve.
Yeah, I would just say that we thought at the last meeting we were going to be talking about leadership council development. So the communication council did meet, I don't know, I think it was 16th or something like that of March. I just want to impress that we have a lot of good ideas. I was reviewing my notes today. It's about 6 pages. I know we've talked about it ultimately though being at Andy's hand. And so I certainly wouldn't want to overstep and be coming forward with recommendations or whatever. I feel like we need to be communicating with him about what kind of support he might want, if any. But I just want to keep that on the radar as a priority. Certainly before the school year gets into end of the year festivities, I think this is the time to get organized with these leadership councils and to help support their growth and just sort of establish expectations and a routine back and forth. So I hope that's something that we could address more or or whatever. But I won't talk about all the things that we talked about until I know it's an appropriate time. But we do have a lot of good ideas about ways that we can think about how what the purpose of a leadership council is and what they want to work with the board and what we hope to get from having a relationship with them.
Thanks. Steve?
So the high school leadership council met today, and we talked a little bit about the SRO and kind of got an update on the process that we're going to follow with Lisa Ryan Services. We also talked a little bit about spring sports. We talked about our current status in terms of COVID. We shared a little bit of information about our reopening committees that our staff is working on. And we also talked about developing some parent forum to provide grade-specific information as families move through BUHS. It's a great group. We also have a couple of people, I don't know if this is the time that we would like to have added to the committee, if I could get them appointed.
Actually, if you could wait, Steve, until you reform the committee and give them to us all at once, it would be really great. I think Andy will be in touch about how to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Jackie? Oh, they can start right now. I mean, they can still come to meetings and everything.
Green Street has met a couple times since the last time we reported out, and to echo what Michelle said, a big topic at both of those meetings was just getting some really good structure in place for how the leadership councils are going to function, councils will function. And then also, I just wanted to say publicly that the Tulip Trot Cabaret musical mashup with outdoor activities is in full swing, and we're getting pictures of the kids doing their activities, and the older kids that are participating in the musical are having their practice. They're going to start recording, and it's like, I just don't know the proper way to thank Mo Hart for everything that she has done for this, but what an absolute rock star and keeping the culture of Green Street School alive during this time. And yeah, somebody should really thank her. So things are going really well at Green Street, and really wanted to say that publicly. Thanks.
Mo's been doing that for a long time. Good thing you mentioned that, because I believe Dummerston and Green Street are going to be the presenters at the next meeting, the 4th Tuesday of the month. So that would be a great time to bring some slideshows or videos about the Tulip Trot. Michelle and then Sean.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't realize we were kind of wrapping this all up together. I know it's getting late, but I did want to say that we also have a new member, Jessica Nelson, who I wanted to appoint because something that like I was just saying, that they're talking about their relationship. And so something they decided to do was to rotate leadership council members to come to the board meetings, both to relay the leadership council report, if that's how we continue to do it, but also to go back and to have their own perspective of the board meetings to share back. And so I know Jessica's here tonight, anticipating just sharing a little bit about what the leadership, our last leadership, we only meet once a month, and I was just going to appoint her and then pass it off and let her do a little talk about it. So I think it'd be nice if we could just rush through that.
Yeah.
Since this is a little different.
Sean, would you mind if we heard from Jessica next? Great, thank you. Jessica.
Thank you, Sean, for letting me scoot ahead, and thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. I'll just quickly mention what we're doing over at Dummerston, and since I've only attended one meeting, I can make it quick. We are working on our playground project. It's moving forward, and we're looking forward to proposals this spring as we kind of reimagine what our outdoor space will look like. And exactly what Michelle said, we're looking at ways that we can communicate better with the board right now. So I'm here tonight kind of getting my impressions and kind of providing those notes to the Leadership Council so we're up to date with our discussions in the future. And then Dummerston typically has had a really big spring arts night. And since it has to look different this year, we're kind of having this spring arts celebration for the month of April, where we're sharing student art the entire month virtually, but we're also going to have an outdoor spring arts walk in May, which is really exciting, where students will actually be set up outside so families can come throughout the day, stay socially distanced, but get to see what students throughout the school are doing. And we'll have live performances going on throughout the day. So it's something we're really looking forward to this spring, to have kind of a fun celebration. And that's what's happening over at Dummerston. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
Sean?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. March 19th, Guilford Leadership Council met. And unfortunately, I don't have my notes right in front of me on that meeting, but we also met on the 2nd of April. And there were 12 people in attendance at that. Liz has been really, a good advocate of coming to a lot of meetings. So that's been nice to have another board member there. And on the 2nd, it was an excellent meeting, went into all kinds of stuff. And one of the big excitements, of course, is the Guilford Outdoor program and how that's going along. And so that's, it was really nice. And I think that Beth Bristol was going to make some presentation about the meeting, but I don't see her here tonight. So maybe the next time, the next meeting, she'll jump in and give the report instead of myself. Thank you.
Ruby?
Hi. So the Putney Central School Leadership Council met a few times, I think, since we last kind of updated to you. Just two highlights. I sent a written report, but the two things I want to kind of shine a light on are one related to community engagement and values. We have started our second round, our kind of spring equity and inclusion book group, and we had a kickoff and had a good number of people, and we'll be focusing on 3 books: Stamped, White Rage, and Cast. And this is really, in my mind, a key component of our connection to the community. And many of the people who attend actually aren't parents, but are community members. So it's one way that we're trying to bring in our community into our school. And the second is related to projects and physical support of the school. We have a small group of people, and Tara Castine has been kind of heading up a project where we did a survey of staff about outdoor structures and what's needed and what's desired and what's, what do we want, so that we can start to have more concrete conversations around what, mapping things out and things like that. And we had a presentation at the last 2 the leadership council meetings actually, because we needed to catch everybody who was there. And I think it was really inspiring. And one of the things I wanted to mention to this board is that the presentation by the Guilford School that focused on the work that their leadership council has done to help their outdoor structures come into existence was really helpful for us in terms of just encouraging us in terms of what the questions we're asking. So we also are doing we're trying to reopen our school gardens and supporting the school in that, and trying to think about how to kind of drum up support in terms of volunteer efforts. That's all I got.
Thanks, Ruby. And I think the last thing here is around or under committee reports and leadership councils is that Andy had suggested that we do these once a month. And I'm not sure, I just wanted to get people's sense of that. If maybe at the first meeting, we hear from leadership councils, and at the second week, the second Tuesday, we hear from leadership councils, and the fourth Tuesday, we hear from the committees as a way of sort of condensing the meetings a little bit. Most committees and leadership councils meet once a month. So the information might be a little untimely, but if there's anything that was urgent, I would think people could share it in other ways. So I just wanted to get some feedback on that idea as well, if people are supportive of having these once a month. And if you are, you can just not say anything, or I guess if you're not, if you think it's a bad idea, then speak now, please. Well, it seems like that's going to work. Great. Okay, we're done, except there'll be another public comment on non-agenda items if there's anyone that wishes to, but we need an executive session.
Yeah, Dave, I was going to ask that we do the executive session before.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I wanted to ask if there's anyone who has public comment on non-agenda items that they would like to address, and I can put you in the waiting room. So raise your hand and I will put you in the waiting room, and I would ask, okay, Bethany wants to wait, so I will add her, and Wendy and the BCTV will go to the waiting room, and the rest of us will stay here. So everyone else, I'd ask you please to leave now. Oh, wait, we need a motion, and Andy, I don't know what it's about. And so I don't know what statute.
A number of staffing and 3 student.
So under VSA 1, VSA 313, confidential, let me see.
A1A.
Yeah, but what's the actual language there?
One of them is contract, and
I don't see the
1 VSA 313
A1, yep.
1A is contracts, and
I'm looking for the one that talks about confidential. It says a confidential attorney-client, which would be BCDE, real estate evaluation of public. Well, it's confidential information on students. Oh, personnel. Okay, it's personnel. And premature, Andy, so the question is, will premature general public knowledge place the school board or the people involved at a substantial disadvantage?
Yes.
Thank you. So we invite the superintendent to join us in executive session. Could I have a motion, please, to go into executive session?
I move the WSESD board to an executive session at 9:42.
Thank you, Sean.
Second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, was that Michelle Green who seconded that?
I did.
Thank you.
Thank you. of executive session at 10:39. Could I have a motion, please, to accept the administrative recommendations as presented?
So moved.
Thank
Second,
you, Michelle. Second?
second.
Thank you, Ann. And I should check, Wendy, you're here?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we didn't, that you were back.
Yes, thank you for checking.
And this time I'm going to remember to say, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, is there any further public comment on non-agenda items? Hearing none. Ann Beekman, would you take us out?
Mr. Chair, there finally being no further business before this board, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.